It is 4 minutes after 10, and I'm not entirely sure which direction we're going to go in. You'll find out in the next 10 minutes or so, and then give me a ring and help me out with whatever the inquiry distills down to in the course of the next few minutes. Because I'm going to begin by mentioning monkeypox. It's not called monkeypox anymore. It's been renamed Mpox, and the World Health Organization has declared a global Mpox emergency. They've even found at least one case of it in America. And I mention this to you because it's coming soon to a Facebook group near you. All of the people who are named today or many of the people named today in a very interesting Times investigation into who sowed or where the seeds of hatred that bloomed into racist riots last week, where those seeds were sown. And many of the names that are mentioned in this article will soon or are already jumping onto the Mpox bandwagon, claiming that it is a hoax or that it's not true or that it is somehow being invented, inflated in order to, and this is where I do still get a little bit confused, in order to control the population or contribute to the Great Reset or do something about two-tier Do you see what I mean? All of these nonsensical conspiracy theories oddly move as one, and the latest will be Mpox. It will be a claim that Keir Starmer is somehow responsible for the World Health Organization. In fact, the serial criminal Stephen Yaxley Lennon is already making similar claims. They've just been sent this. They must have seen Keir Starmer playing his commie tactics and thought we want a piece of that. They're rolling out monkeypox again under a new name. Now, I mention that because when the Times started looking into why people joined the riots, how they could have ended up inciting violence, and what evidence there was of radicalization. I obviously didn't know yesterday when I asked you who you thought had radicalized these people in the context of our conversation about Julie Sweeney, the 53-year-old who has been sent to jail for 15 months after calling for the mosque to be blown up with the adults in it. I didn't know that this rather good article, albeit for one slightly mysterious wrinkle that we'll get onto a little later, I didn't know that this rather good article would essentially seek to answer precisely that question. Who radicalised them? Who radicalised people like Dylan Carey or Tracy Pearson? And what they discovered on the forums where that radicalisation appears to have either taken place or certainly accelerated is that the anti-vax movement and other conspiracy theories like the Great Replacement, the idea that there are actual plans in place to somehow eradicate the white population of the West and replace it with people of colour, that all of these nonsensical and deeply dangerous, but crucially widely believed nonsenses congregate in the same place. So what they have found is that the groups upon which these people were active, up to and including the one upon which Julie Sweeney posted her desire to see the mosque blown up with all the adults in it, buy into the same sort of stuff. And they'll be buying into Mpox now because Yaxley Lennon is one of the people who is cited repeatedly in the article. But essentially, people believe some of the lies that were amplified with regard to the suspect in the Southport attacks. So we'll take one person. We'll begin with one person, Dylan Carey, a 26-year-old father of one. He was at a rally organised by Yaxley Lennon 3 days before he became an active and persistent participant in the riots. At the last general election, he canvassed for the Reform Company, which Nigel Farage runs. He was photographed at the rally organised by Yaxley Lennon with an England flag around his neck, and he was accompanied by his father Philip. And of course, on the morning of the riots, Yaxley Lennon had told his followers on X that police were, quotes, gaslighting, end quotes, the public about the suspect in the Southport attacks. His barrister said in court that he blamed his presence at the rally for his transition from a hard-working family man to sitting before Liverpool Crown Court. But as we've heard, he was neck deep in this stuff. And his father is a regular poster on Facebook of all of these conspiracy theories, such as two-tier policing, an idea heavily promoted, of course, by Yaxley Lennon and also by Nigel Farage. He has shared beliefs in the anti-vax movement and fears that globalist elites are, quote, seeking the Great Reset. He also shared false claims about the Southport attacker. And what struck me about much of this, and he will almost certainly be jumping onto the Mpox bandwagon shortly, because all of these things seem to go hand in hand. That's going to be one of the questions I ask you. That's what I meant when I talked to you earlier about not knowing what question we were going to end up with at the end of this. I didn't know whether or not that would be one of the things that interested me most, but it is. It turns out it is. It wasn't what I expected to go in on first, which is the question of what it's like to love someone. Let's be honest. What it's like to love someone who falls down these rabbit holes, because one of the most arresting, if you pardon the pun, stories told in this article is the story of a man called John England, who is from Mansfield in Nottinghamshire, and who said that a local hotel should be targeted by, and I quote, great English men. He told police that he knew his posts were racist and that he was ashamed of them, but he thought it would have taught the hotel owners a lesson if the hotel had been burned down. And they spoke to his daughter. This is because the journalists have been sitting in the courts and they have been tracking the online activity of people who have found themselves being sentenced. And they spoke to John England's daughter, who is 20 years old. And she said, and this is where my interest in the question of what it's like to love one of these people really came from. His daughter said she had refused to befriend her father on social media because of his right-wing anti-immigration views and the amount of time he spent on Facebook. She said, whenever topics of politics came up, I always moved the subject onto something else to avoid disagreements. And I just wondered what that was like, because I don't want to sound, I really don't, well, maybe I do actually. Let me just have a little pause to think whether yes, I think I do feel sorry for some of these people. I know that's probably white privilege. If it was me that they were trying to burn alive in a hotel, or certainly the people calling for it to happen who probably would have been fairly shocked if it did happen. I don't know that that includes this guy who told police that he did want the hotel to be burnt down because he thought it might teach the hotel owners a lesson. But I do find myself thinking that you can't ignore the role of radicalization. All of these people, the stories are, I think, quite poignant. I don't want to dedicate too much of your time this morning to telling me why I'm wrong to use words like poignant or sympathy. But I do want to put it out there. I do want to be completely open with you, completely honest with you. I mean, who's worse? The hate preacher or the person that believes them? Do you know who got sent down for life the other day? You may have missed this. Anjem Chowdhury, who the British media turned into a sort of pantomime villain of Islamist extremism. And he was a tightrope walker. It was explained to me by some very clever people that I think he even did a law degree. He knew exactly where, I mean, he fell off the tightrope eventually, but for years he knew exactly what he was doing, exactly where the line was between provocation and criminality. And young people whose brains were boiled by his rhetoric, I don't think are 100% responsible for where they ended up. Some of the responsibility for radicalization must lie, mustn't it, with the radicalizers. So I don't think that many of these people who have been sent to jail in the last few days would have been sent to jail if they hadn't spent so much time on these forums if they hadn't spent so much time being radicalised. Now, that means that people listening to this programme now have got people in their lives who they love that have been through this process. It can happen, perhaps, to anyone. You can't be sort of intellectually or socially smug about this. You can't think, well, I'd never fall for that stuff. You have people in your life who have fallen for this potpourri of dangerous conspiracy theories, starting perhaps with anti-vax. One of the characters in this article certainly began his process of radicalization during lockdown. He took a radical turn online, his online activity. This is Tyler Kay, the father of 3 who was jailed for 38 months for using his social media to encourage people to set fire to all the effing hotels full of the bleeps. 710,000 people saw that post. He also, Crown Court was told that the post revealed a racist mindset, and he was also giving advice to the people that he was exhorting to go and set fire to the hotels. But they've discovered that his online activity took a radical turn months into the pandemic in 2020 during the Black Lives Matter protests. He ended up accusing the British Olympic athlete Bianca Williams of playing the race card. A week before the Southport attack, he commented on a clip of Richard Tice, the deputy leader of Nigel Farage's latest publicity vehicle, with the words "Amen to this," after Tice described footage of a police officer kicking an Asian man in the head at Manchester Airport as reassuring. He also wrote that anyone rioting should be deported when Tice criticised police for failing to prevent unrest by a Romani family in Hare Hills in Leeds. The Facebook group, the Facebook community group upon which Julie Sweeney posted her call for the mosque to be blown up with all of the adults in it is interesting as well. Although, oddly, the print edition of the article in the Times omits this paragraph. The online edition does not, which usually means that someone on the editorial floor, someone very senior on the paper, after the article has been written, has decided to take it out. So Julie Sweeney, the primary carer for her husband, lived a sheltered life in a Cheshire village, and she ended up writing on her community Facebook group, "Blow the mosque up with the adults in it." She's now serving a 15-month jail sentence after appearing at Chester Crown Court. That page, the page upon which she wrote that, featured regular posts about immigration, anti-Semitic memes, and comments by Nigel Farage. Discussion had become heated after the Southport attacks and riots, with users writing things like, "This country wasn't built on Islam, there should be no mosques." So we know now the answer to the question that we asked yesterday: who radicalised these people? And part of the answer is Stephen Yaxley Lemon. I think we'll stick with that, actually. Stephen Yaxley Lemon, Richard Tice, and Nigel Farage, because they all appear on the online forums that were part of the process by which these people ended up calling for hotels containing asylum seekers or mosques containing Muslims to be burnt down. Contempt for the conman, compassion for the conned, was a phrase I coined in the aftermath of Brexit, when I seemed to spend my entire life talking to people who believed things that were, to me, very easily disproved, things that were obviously untrue. But the longer it went on, the more sympathy I developed for the people who believed the stuff, and the more contempt I developed for the people who had conned them. And I think I've got space in my heart for a watered-down version of that. Because, look, voting to leave the European Union cannot be morally compared to calling for a mosque to be burnt down. But I do think that understanding the process by which this happens would be helpful for everybody. And so that is why I come to you. What happened to your dad? 0345 6060 When I tell you of a 20-year-old woman who can't be friends with her own father, who she clearly loves, she can't be friends with her own father because of where he has been taken by this form of online radicalisation, starting with the anti-vax stuff, ending with the calls for mosques to be burnt down. When I tell you about her, about that 20-year-old woman, you think, crikey, I know exactly what she's been through. I know exactly how she feels because I feel the same. It might be your partner. It might be your child. It might be your dad. It might be your mum. It might be your Auntie Doris. It could be anyone. The point is, the qualifying factor here is it's someone that you love or loved, because it might be an ex. And maybe you still have some love for the person that they used to be. But what is it like to watch these seeds of hatred bloom in the minds of someone that you love? Hit the numbers now. You will get through. It won't be easy. But I really, really want to hear your story today. What happens? What are the signs? Where's the point of no return? Just very briefly, because this has gone on a bit longer than it should have done. Do you remember the bloke who rang me ages ago? And his wife had had enough of him being so angry all the time. And she just made him put his laptop computer away. And I remember that call. We should try and dig it out. And he just said, so I stuck it under the sofa, James. I didn't go on it again. It was during the sort of EDL heyday. And within a week, he said, it had all gone. I just stopped being angry all the time. It had just ended. This was before social media was quite so all-encompassing. But what's it like if you don't put it away? What's it like to watch a person you love disappear down these sewers? And, of course, I suppose we have to ask how you feel about the Pied Pipers that lead them there. 0345 6060 973 is the number that you need. It's 10:21. It is 22 minutes after 10, and you're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. Let me read you this. I have two people in my life like this, James, both radicalised in different ways. One of them is not blood-related, and I regard that person with weary disgust, but obligation still ties us. They're on the GBB's brainwashing train. They're a tiring canker on my mental health. The other is my own dad, who, while not on the racist spectrum, believes some very deeply, deeply stupid and dangerous things. Manosphere adjacent. I think that's the sort of Andrew Tate world. The tension between love and contempt is a constant seesaw. That's exactly what I'm trying to talk about, that tension that you have between love and contempt, because someone you love, you know, listening to me now, could conceivably have posted some of the filth online that has seen adults jailed in recent days. Some days I can handle it, and I remember when I was a child and I thought he held up the intellectual world. Other times I dream of him moving permanently to Mars. I don't talk to him much nowadays because that tension is hard to handle. And I want to know what that's like when you watch your wife turn into a person who could post on Facebook, blow the mosque up with the adults in it. When you watch the father of your children turn into a person who could call for all the effing hotels to be set fire to with all the B words in them. You watch your partner turn into a person who could not just post this stuff online, but even attend these riots. I want to know what that's like, all right? 0345 6060 973 is the number you need. And just to run through the names that are contained within this article, Stephen Yaxley-Lemon features a lot. A Tyler from Wigan who canvassed for reform at the general election was photographed at Yaxley-Lennon's last rally. Richard Tice features a lot, with a man now jailed posting various approving comments on Richard Tice's public interventions. And Nigel Farage appears as well because the Facebook group upon which a 53-year-old woman called for a mosque to be blown up also features a lot of references to and admiration for him. Helen is in Cardiff. Helen, what can you tell us?
I have lots of empathy for the young girl who's fallen out with her father. I've been in a similar situation, particularly with two siblings. Just the bile and hatred, nonsensical inability to think about things logically, and just to be so gullible and listen to the hatred that's being spewed by the Yaxley, Lennon and Farage. And
when did it start? When did it start?
It started quite a while ago. I mean, it started with Trump, actually,
yes.
and it started with one of my siblings thinking what a fabulous idea it would be for him to get in,
right.
and also it started with Brexit.
Yes.
So all these things were ongoing at the same time, and it's culminated from that.
So it's a conviction that people who weren't born here are problems. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Is that the seed that from which this has grown? And is that based on any?
I would say that the majority of the time I feel that obviously there's a race in terms of colour of skin becoming an issue.
Not so much in Brexit, though, was it? It was more about Eastern Europeans and Romanians.
It was, but then there was always going to be overrun by people from Turkey.
That's true, yes.
And then I think that the colour aspect came into it as well. And also I think that maybe, it didn't need to be that explicit during Brexit, that people were thinking it people were thinking anyway.
What were they like growing up? You're talking about siblings, I think.
We grew up in the same household with the same parents. And actually one didn't grow up in the same household, lived close by, but lived with grandparents.
Right.
And would have had a much wider spectrum really to draw on in terms of education and accepting difference, but as particularly stronger views, I would say, and is educated more than the other sibling who I think there's definitely a race element with. And
what comes into your life? How does it enter your universe then? Because they must know that you disapprove and disagree.
Absolutely. And there's an element of, saying things to goad me, no doubt about it. And there is also, they will, the one doesn't any longer, but the one will send me articles, posts that they know I will be deeply offended by and angry about.
Right.
Almost goading. There are times when I can think, because we've fallen out and stopped speaking over these things, for a while. And
so this is what the 20-year-old woman.
Absolutely.
Let me read you what she said. She said he realizes he shouldn't be saying those things, but he enjoys the shock factor of it.
I think there's an element of that, but I know this is dreadful, but if it were just that, I think it would be easier to manage. It's when you think that there is a genuine feeling that these things are right and that, these convictions, that they really believe these convictions, that's far more worrying. And I hope for this young girl's sake that it is a case of her father just being an idiot and wanting to shock rather than truly believing.
Yeah, you see, that's an interesting element of this whole conversation, isn't it? Mark says, I think you're looking through the wrong end of the telescope. I'm mixed heritage and a little older than you. British society is fundamentally built on white supremacy. The question should be, how did people like you and non-racist people become de-radicalised? Because the ones you're speaking about just found places online that reinforced their pre-existing racist beliefs. I don't know. It can't be. I think it must be a bit of both.
Well, yes, you are right. It is a bit of both, but of course, everything that they read, and I mean, I'm not particularly technically minded, but I guess with all these algorithms, that then everything that comes to them reinforces everything they read. Then reinforces their opinions. They look for things online that will reinforce them. They watch things that will reinforce it, and it's just getting harder and harder to have these, logical
to reach each other, to reach them, and it will be MPOX next. I think if they're as far down the road as I think they are, and as you describe them as being. Final question: what's the point of no return? Was there a moment where you thought, "Crikey, this isn't"?
There's been, I say point of no return. I felt that there have been several, but then, of course, your love for your sibling and the fact that you think, when you've fallen out over Brexit, when you've fallen out over Trump, when you've fallen out now over, the race riots, and because that's what they are, and religion, and it just becomes harder and harder, and you think, right, we've come to an agreement that it's no good us talking about these things because we have completely different views. But then I'm the type of person, if I hear it, if it's directed at me, I can't shut up. If I can just tell you this quickly, James, I attended a rugby evening once in the Welsh Valleys for the great late Jonah Lumo. It was a celebration of his life, and he was present.
Wow!
And there was a comedian there who came on stage afterwards and told a particularly racist joke.
Right.
I waited for the comedian off the stage, and I approached him and I told him that his material offended me. He asked me why. And I told him because it was racist.
Yes.
And he said, I looked around and there are no black faces here. And I said, my face isn't black and I'm offended. Yes. And this evening is, the great Polynesian player who's present. He's black. And I wrote to several newspapers at the time because I was absolutely disgusted. One, a local paper, ran an article which it asked for a quote from Jonah Lumu and his manager at the time. Jonah Lumu said, "You kind of get used to it," which was twisted to "you kind of get used to people like me," rather than the. So
then we're moving into the realms of institutional. So I sometimes wonder what that word means. Helen, I did warn you I was running a little late for the news, and it's now 10:32. So I am interested in how Helen and her brother can grow up in the same house and end up in such completely different places. And I'm also interested in why they go hand in hand. Why would COVID vaccines and Mpox, or monkeypox as it used to be called, be such attractive conspiracy theories to people who believe in or to people who are attracted by racism or Islamophobia? 10:32 is the time. Thomas Watts has your headlines. Just a thing I don't think I've ever said to you before. If you don't want me to include your name in a contribution, try and get that at the top of the message. Because sometimes I read half a message and think, oh, this is good. I'll do this one when we come back from the news. And then I do the second half of it as well. I read to you. And then I get to the end and it says, please don't mention my name. But if you contact me regularly, your name will have already appeared on my screen. So thank goodness that's what this contributor did. Please don't include my name. I want you to listen to every word of this. And then I want you to wonder whether or not we can help. This resonates with me more than I would like to admit, James. I think my partner has sadly fallen over the years from, quotes, edgy humour, end quotes, to very far-right sentiment to some extent. Outwardly, we live very similar daily lives, socialising with similar people in person, enjoying the same hobbies, etc. But his online space is so far removed from reality, I can't understand how he's ended up there. My heart sinks when he speaks or posts in agreement with figures such as Farage and Trump. I think he's been taken in by their, quotes, charismatic, end quotes, personalities. And it hasn't gone far enough to see him actively participating in anti-immigrant riots or protests. But I do worry he is circling on the edge of all this. It's come to a point where we cannot discuss politics for fear of serious argument. I love and care for him deeply. I tell him regularly that I know he's better than this, and I try to nudge him into actually thinking for a moment about the rhetoric he listens to realise how disgusting and untrue it really is. But at this point, I don't think there's any more I can do. To which I now add the question, is there any more that she can do? 03456060973. I'm going to go back to the phones, but some of the messages coming in via text are extraordinary as well. My dad spouts the worst of this nonsense, James, and he couldn't turn a laptop or a smartphone on if he tried. The only access he has to these views is on his TV. It might be more subtle, but it's still there. I don't know that it is more subtle, necessarily, depending on what channels he's watching, because hi James, sadly I now dread my dad answering the phone when I call home. He is retired and watches GB News from morning until night. His whole topic of conversation is a mirror image of the toxic opinions on that channel. His conspiracy theories are now off the chart. My husband is Asian, and our son is therefore mixed race, but he continues to refer to immigrants as they and them. He was never like this in his working life. What's it like to watch that happen to someone that you love? And then finally, I must read this out because you make a fair point and I have to take the criticism. The compassion James is showing really hacks me off, writes Aftab. Where is all the compassion when you have Muslims that have been radicalised? The two processes are the same, but for one we can show compassion and the other we don't. I can see the difference. I'm talking about people who've posted stuff online as opposed to the people who've ended up in the actual riots. And I certainly wouldn't be expressing anything close to compassion or sympathy for actual terrorist murderers, Aftab. But I take your point, and I did say I'm probably indulging in a bit of white privilege. And I have to take that on the chin. Lisa is in Liss. Lisa, what would you like to say?
Hi, James. How are you?
I'm very well. I'm very well. I'm very, very interested in this subject because
yes.
I can, as that message we read out there when she said, I love him and I care for him deeply. That's what this is about, I think.
Yes, it is. It's really, really frustrating. I've been wanting to phone you every time you've sort of mentioned this subject. My stepdaughter, who's just turned 18, a couple of days after the election, luckily, has been completely radicalised just purely from TikTok, Instagram. Her views now are they just drive me absolutely up the wall. We've actually had times when she said, can I pop round for dinner? And we've said, oh, no, we're busy, because we just think we can't listen to what she's
her dad feels the same way that you feel.
Oh yeah, he's so disappointed, and we both just think, what did we do wrong? Where do we, how did this happen? Because it's literally just been in the last year or so.
And what is it that she's fallen for? What is the?
Oh, there's too many people here.
Right.
People that are brown are raping everybody, and just horrific. She thinks that Labour is bringing in Shisha law, which she said to me yesterday.
Shisha.
Yeah.
Well, it was Sharia last week. Not Sharia, Shakira. Shakira last week.
Yeah, she has called it Shakira as well.
Right.
Yeah. When I've asked her what's that about, we try and ask her question. We try and use your tactic when, rather than getting agitated with her.
Yes.
We try and say to her, okay, well, what do you think of this? Or, well, where do you think that came from? And she just ends up in going, oh, you're just been like, Labour have got to you. You voted Labour, so you just don't understand. You don't, she won't have any of it.
Did it come out of nowhere? I mean, did it literally come from nowhere? Or can you see signs of it when you look back over her childhood?
Not at all. I mean, I brought her up since she was 11.
Right.
She was very into the Black Lives Matter movement when she was at school, and very into, women matter as much as men.
Yes.
She wouldn't tolerate misogyny, which is great. I don't either, and I wanted her to definitely learn that. And she's gone completely the other way, even with that. She even said the other day, you should have hit me, Dad should have hit me. I believe that if a woman is wrong, she should be hit.
Well, that's Andrew Tate territory, I think.
Yeah. She's just gone completely the opposite way, and there's been no other influences
except TikTok. What faces? You don't have to tell me, but what sort of people is she? I've mentioned
Nigel Farage.
Really?
Nigel Farage, Trump. Yeah. She just reposts, and I think what happens with the algorithm, you see one thing, and then I've actually looked on her TikTok, and I was just disgusted because it was her younger brother that said, have you seen her TikTok?
Right.
He's 14, and luckily he thinks she's just crazy. So because I said to him, don't watch Andrew Tate, and I'm trying to teach him the right thing as well. And luckily he hasn't gone down that same path, but he's seen what she's reposting. And as are, her friends and his friends. She said she's met a guy who works in the army, and she likes him because he's racist. I said, well, then, I'm pretty sure we won't like him then.
That's just extraordinary. And I think I'm about to say people listening might struggle to fully grasp, but I'm one of them, actually, is that it's an entirely online process. Entirely, 100% online.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. She doesn't get it from us. Luckily, although my family are a lot older, I've got a nan in a care home. She was brilliant when I was growing up. She remembers when people were brought over and how badly they were treated.
Right.
She was, so unracist, and so were my parents. I was really lucky, and I grew up in the 90s, and there was almost, my brothers had, black friends, Asian friends. They were a bit older, and I grew up just completely opposite to this. So now that this is happening, I feel frustrated on a daily basis. I feel just,
and there's nothing you
when
can
the
do.
riots were happening. And
she tried and
said
tried
she
and
was gonna
tried.
Go.
She
was going to go to the riots, and I said, I swear to God, I will lock you in this house. She didn't, luckily. I think it was a lot of all talk, but
I mean, that's the point about the fella in the army and stuff like that, because some of it you could chalk up as her deliberately trying to upset you and deliberately trying to
and she does do that without
wind
doubt,
you up, which is a teenage tradition, isn't it? But she
absolutely.
also means it.
Yes, there are times when we have to try and choose where she's poking us, and where she's going to a point where we have to do our best to educate her and steer her. Like my partner, he's worked for government for the last 20 years or so. Yeah. He's really well educated. I like to think I am slightly.
Sure.
I've definitely become more political since listening to you. We came to your last book event.
Gosh.
We're really open-minded. We like travelling. We've got our own business, so we just deal with lots of networking. We try and show her.
And if people like you can have this experience, I mean, the process by which someone who hasn't got adults looking out for them, parents or step-parents looking out for them and caring for them, can end up doing things that would have got them sent to jail this week is suddenly, for me at least, 10 times easier to understand.
If we had been the same and saying,
egging her on, encouraging her, agreeing with her.
She I think the only time I've got really upset with her was when she said that my grandparents, which all of them have passed away, other than my nan, who has dementia now and she's 96, and she's just my world. And she said, they would be disgusted with you voting Labour because they fought for their country and etc. And that's the only time I've lost my temper slightly, saying, all my grandparents loved everybody and they were very
stood for.
Yeah, and because they told us that people from all different backgrounds fought with them in the war.
And do we know, final question, a lot of love coming in for you, actually, for what it's worth, Lisa, but is there a starting point? Is there a moment where you can, I doubt there is, but I'm going to ask you anyway, a kind of tipping point where you feel the decline began? Yes,
so we I'm not going to lie, we had a bit of trouble with, a bit of mental health, but more, and I'm sorry to say this, but we've been through a lot to get to this point, but a lot of it was crying wolf.
Okay.
And we dealt with it as best we could. She's gone on the attack quite a lot physically and mentally.
Right.
With her mother's very narcissistical.
Okay.
And unfortunately, she does show traits of the same. We've both read a lot of books now. We're trying to educate ourselves to deal with it in the best way, because she is his daughter. She's my stepdaughter that I bring up, and I love her to pieces, even though she isn't mine. She is mine, if that makes sense.
Of course it does.
And I feel like I failed, and he feels like he's failed. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit.
You haven't failed.
And it was at a point where we said to her, please, you need to sort this out. You can't keep hitting out at us.
Right.
She unfortunately said a boy had touched her when he didn't. We had all of that. And we said, if you need to sort it out, otherwise, you're out. And she said, fine, I'll go. And that was the sort of turning point, which we kind of blame ourselves for, but we couldn't put up
carry
with
on.
what
Couldn't
was
carry
going
on doing what you were doing. You had to,
No.
and that. So I mean, so then unraveling how much of this is done to hurt you, and how much and how far into her consciousness the hate has actually progressed is probably impossible to do now.
Yeah, and she has the mindset of it's everybody else's fault.
Yeah.
It's never my fault, and she does hate what's happening in her life a lot. In any failures, her driving test that she failed, it was my husband-to-be's fault.
Right.
It was my fault for not... it's everybody else's fault. So,
which is the
her,
perfect...
When she hears the immigrants, when
there
she
you
hears,
go, you said it. Yeah.
Here's an immigrant, they're taking away your job that you want, which, isn't the case at all. She just about scraped through her GCSEs, through, us kicking her into it,
Sure.
sort of thing.
But the people suggesting everything you want that you haven't got has been taken by the people in the hotel or the people in the mosque or the people in the...
Yeah. And if you're
dinghies.
having a bad day, it's because of that person over there, or because of your parents there, or because of that person there. They're taking your money, they're taking your life away. And she's the perfect person to fall for it, with narcissistical behaviour as well. She's just gone,
I'm going to read.
Seeing someone like Trump,
it just fits. You're so articulate. I can't believe you've explained it all so calmly. But I'm going to read
I'm
you.
incredibly dyslexic as well, so that means a lot to me.
Well, I'm not kidding. I do this for a living. You told that story in an absolutely extraordinary way, and I'll read you some of the responses. Jake writes, "You have not failed. You are being an amazing parent." Kirsty says, "This caller is bringing me to tears. What an amazing stepmom she is. I really hope she can reach her daughter." That's from Kirsty. Remy says, "These poor parents, they seem more equipped than most, and you can hear the pain and exhaustion in their voices, so evident." I love Lisa. She's done a brilliant job. And there's a lot of that coming in, Lisa. An awful lot.
I won't lie to you. We really have. We came from an era where my parents haven't been brilliant. My partner, my husband to be. I actually phoned you when you said about parents being not married or parents divorced, you said, did it put you off marriage? And I said yes, and then he proposed to me a month later. So we got engaged last year, just literally after that. And I was like, no, I don't want to get married. I don't believe in it anymore, But we're now going to get married next year. So
you deserve a bit of happiness, don't you?
I hope so. And that did actually pull the kids together, and they feel they are more secure. So we're hoping that we can.
You're not going to give up on her, are you?
Do our best. Absolutely not. I'm like a bulldog with a bone here. I'm going to make sure she turns out as a well-respected human being and a woman in this world. So
you're a star. Thank you, Lisa. And you take care as well. 10:51 is the time. Wow, it's all there, isn't it? And I mean, you agree with me that was a story told in quite breathtaking clarity, but also heartbreaking detail. It's 10:51. TikTok, of all the things Lisa said, TikTok, apart from the admiration and love for her, TikTok is the one that's really resonated with you. And it's a platform I know very little about. But the first message I read out about the father who's sort of been brainwashed, that's TikTok as well. He's addicted to TikTok. It makes me fume because he got made redundant a couple of years ago. He's very upset by it, and we all rallied round. Mum worked her backside off at home and at both her jobs to cover everything, including a house move and a grandparent with progressive dementia, and he's reciprocated by getting hooked on Chinese and Russian OPSEC dopamine clicks and declaring that he didn't love her anymore. He spends most of his time locked away in a 4-foot square home office, and now I have to catch him making tweets, joking about divorcing horrible women, throwing hate at Amber Heard, his social media riddled with pathetic parasocial contact with sex workers. He's not even got the sense to make throwaways. It disappoints me viciously. I have regular dreams about screaming at him. It would be somehow easier to cut him off if he were a racist. I don't know why, and that's a father who's gone down the sort of misogyny route, the manosphere route, as opposed to the race route. Another one from Mark. My mother-in-law has gone from being a very open-minded woman to a horrid white right-wing GB News following hate-filled woman, and it's really sad watching this person turn into this person. She said some vile things the other day and wanted to go to the Holiday Inn to watch it burn until my father-in-law stopped her. 10:55 is the time. Sarah is in Harrow. Sarah, what would you like to say?
So I'm British Asian, grew up, brought up in this country, and it's my brother that's actually been radicalised. He's a Daily Mail reader, he sends articles on our family WhatsApp chat from the Telegraph, Daily Mail. we had completely identical upbringings, really lovely in the 90s, everything. He owns a small business, sent his children to private school.
Right.
So, outwardly looking, he has it all. I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum. I work in a secondary school, very humble, down to earth, but, I can see the realities of life. But he just in the last 8 to 10 years, he's actually become more sort of right wing, and especially since sort of like the Patels and Bravermans of the world, he kind of almost idolizes them and, says whatever they say is gospel. Just seems to live in this little bubble world, and he has friends who he has met and he sees on a daily basis, and they share WhatsApp sort of jokes and memes, which I frankly find quite disgusting. He's accidentally sent it on our group chat.
Really?
And they're shocking.
Everyone else in the family feels the way you do, or does he get a...
No. So, myself and my husband are pretty left-wing.
Right.
We're not... Yeah, and the rest of the family...
I know you're not speaking specifically about that, but I don't want to use left wing as an anonym for racist. I mean, there's plenty of people who are right wing who manage not to be racist. Sure. They can write, but I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, more leaning towards working in a wider and a diverse community and accepting others, whereas he doesn't. And I just, I feel back to when we were growing up in the sort of late 80s, early 90s, where we had fireworks thrown through our letterbox, and we had across our business, the P word out and everything. So we faced it all. And to see him now kind of putting it as them and us, and I just think no, because to these far right in their mindset, there is no them and us.
And that's why you mentioned Priti Patel and Suella Braverman, because it confuses me as a white bloke that they seem not to understand that a lot of the rhetoric they promote and a lot of the ideas that they seem to endorse are loved by people who wouldn't see beyond the colour of their skin. We saw evidence of that during some of the riots. One bloke was jailed yesterday simply for punching someone because they were black.
Yeah. I mean, it's absolutely ludicrous, and I think people like that position in positions of power have given it a green light.
Indubitably. Yeah, I mean, even the first caller mentioned the prospect of 1.5 million Muslims coming to this country from Turkey. Boris Johnson was all over that, and he ended up Prime Minister.
Yeah, that's true. But, so that's another thing as well, because Boris Johnson visited the business, and, it's up there, and it's a proud moment for him.
Yes, of course.
And it's really sad to see, because anytime we try and have a discussion about anything, it always boils down to politics. So I've kind of just distanced myself away from now family occasions and things like that. Obviously, it's not going to happen, but as much as I can, because for my own mental health, it's not great.
No, I mean, it is. It's an exhausting experience, isn't it, to be dealing with? And another theme that's emerged this morning is that the mixture of these beliefs, these prejudices, these bigotries being real, but also the performative. Reading a quote from the 20-year-old woman who we mentioned at the very outset, who can't be friends with her own father on Facebook. Her father's now heading to jail. But she says he definitely does it to wind me up as well. So you've got it. Do you think there's a bit of that? Does he enjoy your upset?
Yeah, I think he does, and he sends it purposely for my attention.
Yeah.
I just learned now just to ignore it and walk away from it, because before I would rise to the challenge, and then we'd just end up in a verbal slanging match, which was not great for anyone. It's not great for the family cohesion, and so now I remove myself from the situation, and things are a lot calmer. But I have to sort of really rein myself in, which is not no way to live, especially in Asian families. We're very close, and it's not a great feeling to. So
the poison that has been poured into his ears actually affects everyone he comes into contact with. It's not confined to his consciousness. It's spoiling your existence as well.
Exactly.
But does it? I'm late for the news, so this will have to be the last question. I can't see how anyone ends up being happier as a consequence of absorbing this hatred. I can possibly less lonely, but as you've said, with your family background, he shouldn't have been lonely anyway. Has it made him angrier and less sort of happy?
I don't think he sees it as him being lonely. I can see it from my point of view. But he's surrounded by like-minded people who are all in their sort of 40s, 50s, born and brought up in this country, and are British Asian and have a very similar mindset. And it's frankly, it's quite worrying. But it's never discussed, and it's never out in the open unless they're in their safe spaces to discuss things like this.
I'm sorry for what you're going through. Everybody is, and yet by telling us this, we all come to a better understanding of how these things can happen. And that's quite a middle class version, I think it's probably fair to say. So he, as you acknowledge, wouldn't be silly enough to say or do anything outside of the group of like-minded people. Certainly it isn't going to turn up at a riot or anything like that, but it's a different flavour, isn't it, of the same poison, if you like. And that's why the idea that some of these people, quite, I don't want to say vulnerable, but impressionable people who are now going to prison, lead me to ask the question of, well, who is responsible for what was impressed upon them? And I don't think in some cases that is going to be the answer to the question. Some people just seem to have a proclivity for it. 11:01 is the time. Thank you, Sarah. 5 minutes after 11 is the time. I hope you're still listening, Sarah, because this from Jay is going to speak quite directly, I think, to you. I visited my family after work on the Wednesday of the riots, James. Both my mum and my brother kept saying the Muslims are attacking. And I set them straight and said that the rioters are targeting people who look like us. Describing himself and his family as East Asians, and the room went silent. And that was the point, I think, of Sarah's call, was understanding that this stuff can leach into sections of society that some of us might not expect it to. But that's the point, I think, is it can leach in almost anywhere, and does, including siblings, where one is outraged and one is not. Here's a really perfect example of what I'm trying to say. If you read this out, please don't use my name. I really identify with the message you read out. I voted Labour. My husband voted Reform. In fact, we're both paid-up members of the respective parties we support. The political void between us is a chasm. We can't talk politics at home. He tries, but I have to shut him down as he just won't stop once he's started. He blamed me personally, and everyone like me who voted for Labour, for the deaths of the children in Southport. That's a marriage where one partner blames the vote of the other partner for the deaths of children. And I don't know whether the provocateurs pouring the poison into the ears of her husband are capable of caring about the consequences, the real world consequences of what they do to families as opposed to society. I don't know whether they care about that any more than they care about the prison sentences handed down this week to people who were sharing or absorbing their lies and their exaggerations. But sometimes that is in many ways more relatable than the prison sentence, because that you can imagine happening in your home, perhaps, or in your family, but you know that your loved one isn't going to end up at a riot or posting on Facebook for mosques to be burnt down, but you know that they're in the same rabbit hole, as it were, in the same process. And this from Yarrick. I did mention this earlier, I'll never forget one of your callers, that all his conspiracy theories, anger and hate, stopped when he put his laptop away for a week and left it under the sofa. I remember that as well. Lots of people do. I think I mentioned it in a book, as you referenced there, Yarrick. But I love that story because it gives you hope. It proves that progress can be made, if you like. But it is, I suspect, getting harder. And how many people who make the news, who write the news, who comment on the news, are deep enough into TikTok to know what role TikTok is playing in this kind of thing? And that's getting the younger people. That was Lisa's experience with her stepdaughter. That is a big problem as well. 8 after 11 is the time. Peter's in Glasgow. Peter, what would you like to say?
Morning, James. Long time listener, first time caller, so bear with me.
Welcome.
This subject probably spoke to me as recently as last week, actually. We have, as you all have, everyone's on a chat group these days, and we have one where one of our friends lives overseas, and he had messaged back, having read a lot of the stuff online and all the sensationalism, as you can imagine, all the stuff that's getting fed to him. Yes. And out of concern, he messaged on and says, Get the straight, lads, what's happening in the UK? Is everything all right? So I played it down.
Yeah.
I said, listen, there's much ado about nothing. Few folk have hit the cobbles. Jail sentences have been handed out. It's fine. It'll be fine. One of my other friends, a couple of years older than me, both of us have just recently retired from the emergency services, pitched in and said, no, actually, this is what's happening, and I'll be going to the march in Glasgow in September.
Right.
Silence on the chat group. So I messaged back, laughing, saying, I'm assuming you're joking. You've got to be kidding me on.
So what did he say was happening? What was his analysis? What was his description of the riot?
So his analysis was Yaxley Lenin et al., whilst he was taking a holiday with his family, was going to come back to fight, in his words, the cause.
Crazy.
So I gave him the chance, and I went back and said to him, look, he's always been a bit of a kind of a wind-up merchant and like to laugh. So I says, right, I'm assuming you're joking here. I've known you for over 50 years.
50?
I'm assuming you're joking. Yeah.
Wow.
We've known each other. His age is with my older brother, but we've known each other for around 50 years, let's just say. And he came back and doubled down and said, no, I'll be there in the march in Glasgow. And I says, well, in that case, two things that are going to happen here. The first thing is I'm going to leave this chat group. And the second thing is I'm cutting ties with you. I cannot. If that's where you're at in your early 50s, you're not my guy. You're not my guy. I've got two kids, and much to their boredom in the car, talk to them all the time about what's right and what's wrong. This isn't about politics. It's about values and it's about standards. So you can imagine he ends up in that march, gets arrested. My two kids turn around to me and say, Dad's that not your friend? Well, James, unfortunately and sadly, that relationship is now.
And there's no, I mean, I'm not here to give you any lectures, but there's no sense that you could have, if you've known him for 50 years, you could have kind of got through to him. You could have brought him back to the straight and narrow, as it were.
I think you've said it in the past. It's hard to reason somebody out of a position that they haven't reasoned themselves into.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? If I'm being more blunt about it, you can't reason with stupid.
No, I don't know that. I mean, he's your mate, but I don't know that stupid doesn't cover a lot of what we're talking about today.
But the context is interesting, James, in the sense that this is an individual drives a flash car, goes on plenty of holidays, born and brought up in a very good neighbourhood, within the city. There's no point of reference for him, ex-emergency services, just retired, at an early age in comparison to the normal man and woman in the street. So for somebody like that to talk about, in inverted commas, the state of our country, that's quite, for me, is quite scary.
Is it just a euphemism? Is it just a euphemism for too many brown faces? Then and you had no inkling that he was of that ilk in all the years you've known him.
He's always been a bit of a joker, etc. But I didn't realise to the point that you would take the action to go and join a march in your own city. That's the bit that I thought, no, hang on a second here. It's one thing to laugh and joke and maybe say things out of context, that you believe.
Okay,
but to physically say...
Like you say, a wind-up merchant. And we're back to that line, aren't we, between deliberately winding people up and actually believing the stuff that you're using to wind people up.
Correct.
That's really interesting. I'm sorry for this experience. I mean, it leaves quite a big hole in your life. Did anyone else on the chat join in? Or did they just sit back and watch this unfold?
I feel so sorry for my friend overseas.
I was about to say, I bet he wishes he'd never asked, didn't he?
Which is a shame. Listen, it is a shame, but you have to stick by your principles that if I'm talking to my two kids, my two boys, about being a decent human being and growing up and accepting people, I can't be around that. I can't. At this stage of my life, I've retired from the emergency services. I spent 30 years serving the public. I want to look at the second chapter of my life. So if this is somebody that's around me that holds those views, and not just those views, but the actions that come with it, James, he's not my guy.
No, and I think that's a therapeutic decision. It's a decision taken for as you explained, for your own mental health. It would just be such a toll that it would take on you. If it was your child, you'd have no choice, like Lisa, but to hang in there. But if it's someone you can cut out of your life, then they take the poison with them. Whew. Peter, thank you. I'm going to read this from Joe because I think it's worth responding to. I think what you don't realise, James, is a lot of people get stirred up by people like yourself. You deliberately trigger right-wingers emotionally in self-appointed role as a liberal shock jock. I think what you're seeing on the streets is a reaction to the liberal left agenda, as much of it is a reaction to the failed economic policies of the Conservatives. I actually know why you have to say that, Joe, and I hope this doesn't get filed under condescending or some sort of insincere attempt to trigger you. But what we've done for the last hour and 14 minutes is not just invite people to describe what it's like to live with characters like the ones that are being jailed this week. We've also, of course, without mentioning it, held up mirrors. We've held up very, very accurate, big mirrors. And what you've done, as your text demonstrates, is you've looked in it. As you heard Lisa describing her stepdaughter, or Peter describing his friend, or as you heard other callers describing the descent into incoherent hatred that leads to these riots, you looked in a mirror and saw yourself. So the first stage, inevitably, is to blame the person holding the mirror, to blame the person showing you what you look like. The second stage is to understand that. And I genuinely hope that I've helped you approach that second stage. It is 17 minutes after 11. It's the fractures in families that are really heartbreaking, aren't they? Here's another one. In the last 2 weeks, my dad has started tweeting prolifically in support of the likes of Farage, Yaxley Lennon, the lad from Lawrence Fox, etc., and sending vile insults to anyone he perceives as left-wing, woke, or who points out that the recent riots were driven by racist rhetoric. He keeps tweeting about the indigenous population of the UK, says Islam is incompatible with British values, etc., but constantly tries to claim that he's not racist. He's clearly very angry and is getting all of his information from social media. He's gone down YouTube and covered from that and has spent the past few decades looking for a cure. She fell in with anti-pharma conspiracies and now picks up on any conspiracy and thinks that she's educating us. She's the only family I have, James, and I don't even know her anymore. I grieve for the witty, clever person I used to look up to, but I think she's gone forever. And that's why, probably to your surprise and confusion, I began the programme by pointing out that these people, these radicalisers, these preachers of prejudice, are going after the warning from the World Health Authority that Mpox, a particularly virulent strain of what we used to call monkeypox, has been detected, and they've declared a state of emergency. So we haven't today, because the calls have been so extraordinary, we haven't looked at the question of why they all go hand in hand with each other. Anti-pharma, as it were, or anti-vax, and now anti-World Health Organization. And there is a brother, a loving brother, living it as we speak. 20 minutes after 11. Isaac's in Swansea. Isaac, what would you like to say?
Hi, I'm very nervous.
It's only me. It's only me, and it's a nice, easy-going topic that doesn't have any potential pitfalls or problems contained within it at all, Isaac. So we'll be absolutely fine.
It isn't a loaded topic at all.
No, exactly. But I'm here to listen.
I think that I'm a pretty decent cross-section of a lot of the topics you spoke about this week, James. I'm around about 20. I've got psychosis. And it's a struggle.
Right.
I've managed to pull through, and now I'm studying law, and I found out I'm quite good at it. But it took a lot of unlearning things, because I realised when I was about 17, when I went off to college, that I'd been radicalised by the content I was watching on YouTube when I started getting into politics.
Right.
As I studied politics in college as well. And I think what's left out of this, and what was sort of slightly mentioned in a previous call-in, is that there's definitely an element of mental illness and suffering in this that isn't talked about quite as much.
I think Lisa alluded to it, and it's going to apply in some cases, but no one's suggesting it's going to be relevant to all.
Yeah, it's not relevant to all, absolutely not. But
it's relevant to you.
And there's been quite a few people I've known in my life who've had similar stories, not always the same, never exactly the same, but there's elements that are shared in all of them.
So what was it you believed that you had to, as it were, unbelieve when you arrived at college? What was the process of radicalisation that you'd endured?
Well, obviously, for all British people, it's all about immigrants, isn't it? It's all about.
I don't know, because it could be about vaccines. It's about monkeypox today. I presumed it was, but I just wanted to clarify, to confirm.
Yeah, you're right. No, it was mostly about immigration. Was the radicalising factor, but then it spread to everything. It spread to absolutely everything. Skepticism on absolutely everything.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think one leads into the others?
There's a pipeline, James.
Right.
You start off just looking for funny videos that are a little bit edgy, and it's not you thinking you want these things.
Yeah.
But the YouTube algorithm it's perfected to know how to manipulate you into carrying on down a specific line of thought, because that's what makes the most money.
Yes. Okay.
Is keeping you further and further down a hole, making sure that you're continually consuming this kind of content, no matter how bad it gets. That's irrelevant for them.
How bad did it get?
It did get quite bad, to the point where it was, similar to what was said earlier. You had the belief that immigrants were coming over and raping people en masse, and that just simply isn't true.
But the tidal wave of content telling you that it is true is something that most people won't know about, and if they did know about, might fall for. I mean, that's the real mad tension here, isn't it? In that you listen, let me show you how this works, but then that runs the risk of signing up new recruits, as it were.
Exactly. There's two elements, though, that I think really forced me into that. Because I think a lot of people would look at that and turn away.
But the business model is the people who don't turn away. The business model is the people who want more. So how did you break it? How did you break this cycle?
Well, I was forced to. Absolutely forced to, because I had to go out into the real world. I had medical leave in school. Right. I was isolated, and then COVID hit.
Right.
So I had, I think, 3 years where I just didn't see anyone.
Good Lord.
And then I went to college, and it was a complete culture shock. I became friends with a Muslim boy.
Right.
And he's an incredible person. I never thought it was possible. I had genuinely become so prejudiced that I didn't believe that was possible. And it amazed me because he was so completely blasé about everything. I thought, no, there's no way. I've been told that they're all Islamic extremists. There's no way that this is real. And through my studies, I realized that, the arguments these people have been making have been wrong from a point of construction, not just from what they're saying, but that the things they're using to evidence their claims cannot correctly be used that way in a properly formed argument. But people like me, who have psychosis, often have trouble with logical thinking.
Okay.
So these people pose themselves as intellectuals, and they say, here's the evidence. And you're not questioning it because you're having a hard time understanding the evidence and how that relates to what they're actually saying.
Yeah.
You have a hard time understanding it. So you're just taking their words for it because they've got a posh English accent, and they say the right things and they say them in the right way, so they must be right?
Yeah.
And you don't realize until you decide to really educate yourself, you decide to really push yourself, that these arguments simply don't work. They cannot be constructed in that way, such as Nigel Farage. Oftentimes, Nigel Farage will...
He's just asking questions, though, isn't he? You see?
Yeah, obviously. But all of his statements that are definitely questions and never statements, never.
Yeah.
Always start with premise, point, right?
Yeah.
So his first premise is always something like, there are immigrants. And that's the evidence of it. He'll evidence that there are immigrants.
So everything
and then
that follows must be true because there definitely are immigrants.
Exactly. And a lot of people like me had a really hard time not understanding that.
Well, you've helped me understand it a little better. We're kind of pretty much out of time. Did it happen very quickly then when you got to college and you just started mixing with people from different... Because a lot of people we've spoken to and about today, of course, are not under a sort of form of house arrest. They're not living in complete isolation. And we've got the dad in his 4x4 office, almost living online, but we've got the brother whose mates agree with him. We've got people who are living full existences out and about and presumably looking at people with these secret thoughts inside. So, I know you're not claiming that you're representative of any broader truths, but when it happened, did it happen very quickly?
The most radical things absolutely fell away very quickly.
Right.
There were a lot of underlying things that definitely stuck around a lot longer than they should have done.
Okay.
And I'd just like to say, before I go, for a full 2 days, I have run out of my tablets. So anybody who's listening who needs to take their tablets, do it, because at least in my experience with things like this, you end up being a lot deeper in the hole than you realise.
That's an interesting... and again, I know that you're speaking from difficult personal experience. I wasn't quite sure where you were going at the end there, and I hope you get your medication sorted ASAP, Isaac. Thank you.
Thank you. That's absolutely the next thing I'm doing.
There it is. I'm very glad to hear it. Thank you, mate. Man, there's a lot going on here, isn't there? Maggie said, I cut ties with a friend of 20 years in a restaurant in Edinburgh. She was complaining about folks speaking foreign languages in her city. That sounds familiar. I mentioned that it was a capital city that benefits hugely from tourists and foreign students, but it didn't soften her attitude one bit. It was astonishing to me, as she had previously benefited from having Edinburgh University foreign students staying in her flat over many years, which helped her with her mortgage. It was a longer conversation, but I left, stood up, told her I couldn't be friends with someone so xenophobic, and thanked our excellent Romanian waiter, paid the bill, and I haven't seen her since. It was Brexit that started it all off for her. It's coming up to 11:30. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC, where, inspired by, because I give the Times newspaper quite a lot of jip, correctly, in my view, but credit where credit is due. An excellent report today, looking into where, to use the words of their own headline, the seeds of hatred were sown. And a little mystery about why Nigel Farage's name appears in the online version of the article but not the print version aside, it is absolutely extraordinary how many people are adjacent to the sort of experiences that have seen the people in the article. No, this is important. Seen some of the people in the article go to jail, and some of the people in the article watch their loved ones go to jail as a consequence of these journeys into the darkness. 11:30 is the time. I'm going to stay with this till 12, so if you want to add your story to the mix, or you feel that you have a point of particular pertinence to make, then the number you need is 0345 6060 973. Thomas Watts has your headlines. 34 minutes after 11 is the time. This from Nick. Just a thought on why the Venn diagram of Brexiteers, flat earthers, anti-vaxxers, right-wing nutjobs and other conspiracy theorists has such a large intersection. If you build walls to protect your sense of self from reality, then you probably, brackets subconsciously, want to build as many walls as you can to make it harder for anyone to knock them all down and get through. That's thoughtful, thought-provoking, certainly, as indeed was Isaac's analysis of how snake oil salesmen or demagogues or whatever you call them, how they operate. I'm going to listen back to that call because I missed the bit. Was it what was the third bit? It was premise, and then something else. So the way that a sentence is constructed by someone like Farage, whatever the claim at the end is, feels true because the bit at the beginning was true. There are immigrants. For example, in our country, but the bit at the end is somehow smuggled through under that cloak of plausibility. 25 minutes to 12. A lot of people commenting on the quality of your contribution, Isaac, which I hope you are gratified by. Dave's in Manchester. Dave, what would you like to say?
Hello, James. First time caller.
Welcome.
To you, great, by the way. It's what you've been talking about really resonates with me in my relationship with my dad. We get along brilliantly. It doesn't tend to harm the relationship as such, but it is frustrating from my point of view.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on. But if I give you a couple of recent examples of kind of how this overlaps with conspiracy. So obviously the recent riots that have been in the news a lot. He's more than happy to, for example, criticise individual rioters for the damage that they're doing, but it's you're seeing that it's the underlying sentiment that he agrees with.
Yes.
And something that one of your callers said earlier was exactly the sort of thing that I've experienced, whereby he will say something along the lines of, well, everyone that voted Labour and for mass immigration is responsible for the attacks, the Southport attack, for example.
Wow.
And I said to him at the time, but there's a fair chance that this, we don't know.
Careful, it's a live point now, a live legal case, so we don't need to say any more about that specifically.
Yeah. But it's just an example of the kind of the conspiracy behind it, and there's always an answer to everything. I will send him articles, or I'll send him not just about this specific example.
Sure.
That would kind of, at least from where I'm sat, disprove what he's trying to say. And there's always an answer to it, and that has to be being fed from somewhere.
When did it start, Dave? When did it start?
Well, I think he's been a long time reader of kind of Daily Mail, more recently the Telegraph.
I'm glad you've mentioned that. We've let them off the hook a bit, which isn't normally like me. I'm normally all over them like a rash, but an awful lot of the stuff that we've been talking about has been on front pages of national newspapers for the best part of a decade. So that sets the scene, doesn't it, for the rest to follow?
I think Brexit was an amplifier.
Mm-hmm.
I think it normalised a lot of what was perhaps. What's the phrase I'm looking for? You weren't supposed to say in public. What's the word I'm looking for? The phrase.
But very much so. The kind of was kept in the shadows.
Yeah, more recently. Sorry, for interrupting. More recently, obviously, social media's again amplified that and kind of put it on steroids, if you like.
Do you see what he sees? Do you ever have a look at what he? I mean, does he post stuff that you see, or do you know what sites he's on?
I may go around from time to time. And talk to him about not just that, obviously, but it'll come up in conversation. He'll say, have you seen this, or have you seen that? Or he'll send me things on WhatsApp, for example. I say, look, the internet can also be your best friend. You're more than welcome to Google all these things and fact check them. And I'll send him links to websites like Full Fact, for example.
Yeah. But they're all part of the lefty media conspiracy, are they? Or
yeah, exactly. They're kind of waved away, exactly as you say, like leftist conspiracy theories. Or
what does he get out of it, Dave? Because you know him better than anyone, and those of us lucky enough not to have had this kind of thing come into our lives, and I think it is just luck. I don't want to make any bones about that. What do you think he gets out of it? What's the win?
I think it's as the saying goes, sorry, James. It's an easy answer to complicated issues. Lots of these issues are nuanced. There's no, at least in my eyes, there's not easy solutions to a lot of these issues, immigration being one of them.
Yeah.
And I think what people like, Nigel Farage, Tommy Robinson offer is an easy answer to them. If we just do this, then all of your problems will melt away. That's how I see it.
But it doesn't work. So, is he happier now than he was before?
No.
So what? No. Getting something, validation, vindication.
No, I just think, to him it means if he votes a certain way, for example, he can feel like he has done what he can to solve, a particular issue, whether it be immigration or the economy, for example.
And that's the problem, isn't it? Because you say, well, what exactly is the problem that you need solving, that you think immigration is causing? And then you come up against, if you push far enough, you just come up against the, I don't mean them line. I mean all the other ones. I don't mean the ones that I work with, or the ones that I know, or the ones that I went to school with, or the ones that are doing my accounts, or fixing my car, or treating me in hospital. I don't mean any of them. I'd mean all the other ones.
I experience this online as well occasionally when I do take people up on things. They'll just shut the conversation down. Once you dig far enough, what happens is they'll say, I've got to go now. Or the other tactic is to kind of attack you as a person, if you play the man rather than the...
Yeah. Well, I know a little bit about that, Dave, in my own small way. But because eventually you don't, when you run out of road, you don't abandon the thoughts that you got on the road. You lash out at everybody and everything else.
Or you stop the conversation. And that's where you are now, is that is there a sort of gentleman's agreement not to go there? Or does he, like some of the other stories we've heard today, does he almost goad you sommes? Because No, I mean, we're more than happy to talk about, the conversation will change to football or whatever it might be, Yeah.
And that's what you want to do, because he's your dad and you love him. And
of course, I love him to bits.
You need him in your life.
It doesn't make it any less frustrating, I think is the word I'd use.
I'm sorry, and I don't know what the light at the end of the tunnel looks like. Well, I know what it looks like, but I don't know how you get there. I really don't, except the fact that you love him has got to be a starting point, and he loves you. Let's not miss that either. Dave, thank you. This is important from Richard. Apologies if I missed you mentioned it. I've had to dip in and out of your show today. Surely the biggest omission in the Times article would be the names of Rupert Murdoch and Paul Dacre. These two have been responsible for a large part of the hate-mongering worldview that swirls around all the conspiracy theorists. Their decades of poison dripping into public discourse has helped create the more recent social media hatred. You make an excellent point, Richard. I don't suppose they will be held responsible. Well, I nearly mentioned the fact that this article in the Times today could hardly appear in other newspapers, could it? It could hardly appear in the Daily Mail or Rupert Murdoch's other British title, The Sun, because the catalogues, the pages, the collages of front pages that the Express and the Mail and the Sun and latterly the Telegraph have published over the years are, I've said to you at the beginning of last week, they could almost be banners held up at these riots. Those front pages, the perception of invasion, the perception of replacement, the lies about immigration in general, or the proclivity for criminality among certain parts of the population, all of that has been very carefully germinated, if that's the right word, by precisely the people you mentioned, and of course their foot soldiers. Jermaine is in Northampton. Jermaine, what would you like to say?
Just like to say, really, that the way I come into this world, my mum's Irish Catholic, and basically my grandma kicked my mother out for being pregnant with a black man.
Right.
And when we used to go around as kids or get off the bus or something, she'd used to cover us up.
Your grandma? Your mum did? Or your grandma did?
No, my mum's mother.
Right.
She used to put, cloths over us. And if anybody's seen us because of our skin colour, she'll just say to the people in the street, "Oh, it's all right, they've just come back from abroad."
Oh, my days.
So, and then growing up, as I got older, we got called black bees. Coloured is the one word that I hate, because I kept saying, "How are we coloured?"
Yeah.
We don't change colour. We're the same colour all of our lives. I'm half white, half black.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of white friends that hate this type of thing. I've never really had racism since being a child.
From your own grandma.
But from your own grandma, yeah, and cousins, they always call you black bees or the P word or whatever else they want to use. And then later on in life, my mum told me that there was one time on a bus stop, there was a Muslim lady stood there in I don't know what they call, I'm not very educated in that, but it was like a sari thing with the headpiece.
Yes.
And my grandma punched her for no reason. And my mum was young, and so I don't know if my mum was fighting out because she found that she liked black men or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's literally been the whole lot. And I remember one time trying to help my Irish granddad by closing the back boot. We used to do these car boots.
Right.
And I must have been about 7 years old, and I tried to reach up to grab the boot, and because I reached up and grabbed it, it hit the back of his head, and he just shouted, "You black bee," kind of thing. And I was just like,
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, well, there's not a button inside a woman's womb that tells us what colour to be. And as I've grown older, I try and educate myself a little bit. I've listened to you a lot. I'm brand new to you. I've just found you on YouTube, and I think you're great the way that you are.
Thank you, mate. Thank you.
And I just always realised, well, hold up, aren't we all immigrants? Weren't we invaded by Vikings, Romans and Saxons? Aren't we actually all immigrants when you think about it? So it really irritates me.
I can see why, and it's really, I mean, it's personal. It's so personal for you as well. And what you remind us of is that what we're talking about today, elements of this conversation are new, but the bedrock of this conversation is as old as humanity, really, isn't it, Jermaine?
Well, it is, and it scared me.
Your nan wasn't on TikTok. Of that, we can be fairly confident, can't we?
Well, I no longer speak to her. My mum called me last year to say, look, would you like to come to her birthday party?
Right.
And I flat out refused. I says, how can I go and wish happy birthday to somebody that's been absolutely disgusting to me all of my life? I can't buy into that.
Oh, mate.
I've got friends of all colours, all creeds. Most of my friends are actually white, but that's not to say I don't like anybody else, because I do.
Yeah.
I like a variety of music genres. You know, yes. I don't mind. I'm a big fan of Cliff Richards, even though I'm a mixed race guy.
Oh, we were getting on so well, man. Honestly, I can't believe you went there.
Well, I'm going back to the movies as a kid growing up, watching Summer Holidays and that. But then I listened to Daniel O'Donnell, which is an Irish singer. You know.
Yes. Quite middle of the road, your tastes, aren't they, Jermaine?
Yeah, you know, but then I was scared growing up, thinking, what am I going to do when I have kids? Are my kids going to go through the same racism? And my youngest son just has. He's just gone through it. The school didn't really go out about it. They sort of just putted it off. But luckily, my partner is white with blonde hair, so my kids are olive skinned. So I was more on the verge of, you're actually getting at me somewhere. But I don't play the race card, because I think people say what they see, if you know what I mean. If you get cut up by somebody in traffic and they've got glasses, you tend to shout what you see, kind of thing.
Yes.
But when it comes down to my family members that are racist to me on my mum's side, I've just ostracized myself from all of them. I don't speak to them. No different to my dad's side. I don't speak to them neither, because my dad was quite abusive, and I've now got mental health issues because of that.
I'm not surprised, mate.
I've never been in trouble with the law.
Self-care is what you're describing. I hope this doesn't sound patronising, but you've got an extraordinary ability to analyse your own feelings and experiences, and to unpick things that many people would have found impossible to remember, or would have wanted to keep locked away deep inside them. It's quite inspiring to me to listen to you.
It's part of the therapy, I think. I started my own mental health podcast for men, to try and help other men, where I've had psychiatrists on and therapists. I've had people on that have been, you know, sexually abused for men as well. My brother also went through that same scenario, which we found out a few years back, and that's why he was acting out.
Right.
But no, I try and look at everything as it is. And I've come to the decision, I won't say the actual swear word of it, but hopefully you'll understand. In this world, there are good see you next Tuesdays, and there are bad see you next Tuesdays.
Just about, okay, but yeah. All right, and this is what I mean about your clarity of expression, and it's so you're on a good path. I know you mentioned that you have
CBT. I'm on my 5th session of CBT. I'm starting to journal.
You're such a good advertisement.
Helped me out so much.
Well, that to me, that is really quite moving to me, having acknowledged just in the course of this conversation how much work you're doing on yourself to deal with the trauma from your past. Would you, if you want to, just mention after we say goodbye, mention to Eleanor the name of your podcast, and I just need to double check everything's all right.
That's fine.
And
I'll give
it a shout out on the show if you want me to. Would you like that?
Yeah, no, that'd be great, because it would help a lot of men. I have women on there as well that have gone through traumas, and
it sounds really interesting. So stay on the line, all right?
Thank you.
And look after yourself.
No, it's brilliant. And thanks so much for speaking, Mark. I absolutely love you.
Well, I love you too now, man. This is a bromance, a budding bromance, but possibly not one that we will anoint with a joint Cliff Richard listening session. It's 11:49. 11:51 is the time. This topic has strengthened my resolve to stay away from my brother. During the Black Lives Matter protest, I had an argument with him online because he couldn't understand why blackface was extremely racist. He also couldn't understand how different races could be Muslim, or why he, a Scottish white man, could be privileged. After an argument, he blocked me and has forced me to stay away from my niece, who I've been missing deeply this entire time. I can't understand how we grew up in the same environment from which I got compassion for everyone, while he ended up with the opposite personality. Jermaine touching a lot of us, actually. It was great, that, wasn't it? I don't know why. It must be because I've had therapy myself, but I could tell when he was talking that he'd done the work, and not just done the work, but taken it further and got himself a level 2 certification in self-harm prevention and suicide prevention. And his podcast is dedicated to making a positive impact and helping people share in his personal journey to support others during challenging times. It looks fantastic, actually. It's called Still Worth the Journey. Still Worth the Journey. And if you were as impressed by that contribution to this programme as I was, then you may want to dig out the podcast, wherever you get your podcast. Still Worth the Journey with Jermaine. 11:53 is the time. Staying in Northampton. Honestly, you wait ages for a call from Northampton, and then two come along at once. Dale is also there. Dale, what would you like to say?
Morning, James,
Hello.
and thanks for taking my call.
You're most welcome.
Right, my little take on this. Ethnic background, Turkish Cypriot.
Right.
The parents have been here forever. You know, I've got older siblings, so born here, 60 years old now, nearly. Most of my friends are white, to be fair. Well, white, black. I haven't got many Turkish friends because we sort of left London a long, long time ago.
Okay.
For me, though, this started back at 9/11,
right,
when it all really kicked off. That's when it all went sour, if you want. Yes. And my background is as well, I used to run a bike club. I'm a biker, was a biker. And I don't know if you know much about the bike scene, but they are quite a nationalistic.
Can be.
They are.
Yeah.
No, they are. I used to go to the things myself. I used to do all the charity rides.
The only reason I said that was because I'll get a message from someone who is a biker and is not a nationalist in the way that you do. So I'm just putting that caveat out there. But it's your story. It's your story, not mine.
No, when I carry on the story, you'll see that there are still some that are not. I've still got some biker friends, but I would say since 9/11, all the way up till today, and I'm still doing it as of today, I would say I've lost at least 90% of my friends.
Wow.
At least 90%. I used to run a bike club. It all stopped. Since 9/11, you know, they were posting things, and I would say to them, look, you can't post that and have me on your friends list. You can't.
Yeah.
You just can't do that. You know, it's contradicting. You just can't do it. And they wouldn't agree, and we would fall out. And we used to go on trips together, big groups of us all around Europe.
So you're the living embodiment of I don't mean you, aren't you? So
absolutely.
Right.
I mean, if you listen to me, and if I didn't tell you my ethnicity, you'd never know.
Right.
You know, and I've suffered with the racism, if you like, all my life. Going for jobs, ringing up for jobs, and, you know, and they, come down. You know, you oh, lovely, you sound brilliant. I tell them my name's Del. Everyone knows me as Del.
Right.
So you couldn't tell, but walk through the door and the job's gone.
Gosh.
You know, and I knew what it was about. I was expecting it. You know, like I say, 60 years here, I've been through this all my life.
So this shift after, because the Muslim experience in general changed forever on September the 11th, which is, of course, what the terrorists wanted. But you're talking about people who would not previously have going there, and not realising that when they were posting these hateful tropes or comments or memes or whatever they are, the hate they were harvesting was directed at people like you.
Absolutely, and worse than that, they're putting me and my kind and my family in harm's way. Is what they're doing.
Well,
you know, and I'm supposed to be a trusted friend. We're supposed to care about each other.
Does anyone ever respond correct? I mean, does anyone go, crikey, Del, you're right, I'm so sorry, mate?
Very few and far between.
I'm so
very
sorry.
few. And this goes on till today. You know, I'm still going with the latest stuff that's going on. I've had to put a post up recently on my Facebook saying, look, if you're sharing and posting these things, then you obviously don't give a flying whatever about me, my family, or my kind safety. You know, so delete me. And if you don't delete me, I'll delete you. That's what's going to happen. I don't want you in my life. And it's come to the point now where lately, or the last thing that's happened, I've actually thought to myself, and if it wasn't for my grandchild and my children and my other family, I would want to leave. I don't feel like I belong here no more. I don't feel like I'm safe here no more. And I worry for my family. I really do. I mean, I don't look... I'm a big, tough, lorry-driving ex-biker.
Right.
But my mum wears all the Muslim gear. My sisters, they do.
If more people described it as if more Muslims described it as all the Muslim gear, I think it might actually be quite a force for good, Del, to be honest with you.
Well, I'm an East Ender by birth, so this is what you got. I'm a Turkish Cypriot Cockney, and that's the way I talk. Everything about me.
Your country's changing at the moment. You feel it changing around you, not for the better.
It's been doing it since 9/11, and it's just getting worse and worse and worse. And it started with those in power.
Yes,
it started with the so-called elites and those in power and the media moguls, and it started with them. Then everyone else jumped on it.
And once it becomes commonplace, you've got to go further, and you've got to go further, and you've got to go further, and then they're throwing bricks at the police and trying to set fire to.
And it's been entrenched into what our society now since 9/11. It's a long time ago. And the Muslims have been vilified since then.
Constantly.
Yeah, absolutely, constantly. And I've got my theories on the agenda, but I'm not going to put it up. I'm not going to say about it. I've got my own theories on why this is happening. But that's neither here nor there.
Well, it's happening, I think, because it's very good for business, for the people whose names have popped up again and again and again on this program, and will continue to do so.
Yeah, and the political agendas, that came first.
And they enrich themselves. Yeah, I want to say something to reassure you. I want to say something to say this is still your home. You're still. Welcome's not the right word. You don't welcome people into their own home, do you?
Well, no. And my parents came here with British passports. There was a British colony.
Yeah, of course.
As did a lot of these people. They came here invited.
I know.
Invited by the state. And they came from British colonies. And, it's disgusting. It's horrible. It's a horrible thing to live through. It really is. To be marginalised, and it gets smaller and smaller and smaller, that margin. And to the point where you just feel like, I go to work and I come home. That's it.
It's not fair.
No, it's not fair. It's horrible.
It's horrible.
And I feel and I've got 3 children here. I've got a grandson now. And I worry about them. What are they going to be going through?
Well,
when I'm gone.
As long as people like you are out there, Del, fighting the good fight, things will get better.
Well, no, it's a losing battle. I'm not fighting the fight. I'm just fighting a losing battle.
No, it's not a losing battle. You might be losing the battle on Facebook, but there'll be people listening to this programme right now who you've just given a bit of a wake-up call to. They'll be thinking, God, yeah, he's right. I'm in danger of slipping into that worldview, or I have slipped into it, and now I'm going to slip out of it.
Don't get me wrong, James. I do feel the majority of the general public are good.
Yeah.
I don't feel like they're bad and they're all far right and
same here. Absolutely.
I don't think that. It's a very small minority,
but they're very, very noisy.
But the noisy ones are the ones with the power.
They are. They are.
They're the ones that are dangerous, and they're the ones that are radicalising. This is what this was all about. This phone call, wasn't it? This show today.
Yeah.
The radicalising is coming from those in power. A very small minority, very powerful people. And they're the ones doing it to everybody. And the sheep just follow. But it's in them already. It is already in them.
Maybe it's in all of us.
Maybe to a degree. You've even admitted, that... Yeah, I suppose.
I don't know. But that is one way of...
I'm tired of it.
I know you are. I can hear it in your voice. And that's why I'm saying goodbye to you with a heavy heart, because I wanted to part on a more upbeat note or on a more optimistic note,
This isn't... Even this call, it's been a bit therapeutic, to be fair.
I'm glad to hear it. Let me read you what Matt says. He says, tell the bike he's still a biker. It's in our hearts and souls. Sod the scene. You be you, bro.
You know, I wish I could do that. I really do. But I sold the bike 5-6 years ago, and I've just given up with it.
Oh, mate.
Because it's a scene. The bike is a scene. It's not a lonely thing, a bike thing.
No, I get that.
And if you've got a bike, you're going to go around where them other people are, and I don't feel like I can do that.
And that's not
So I
fair.
sold it.
And that's why we're having the conversation that we're having. I wish it had been more therapeutic. I wish it could be more uplifting, more optimistic. But I am very lucky that I get to listen to people like you when I try to come to a better understanding of the stuff that we've been talking about since 10 o'clock this morning. And I'm also very grateful, Del. Mind how you go. It's 12:02. 6 minutes after 12 is the time. That was extraordinary. Thank you. I don't remember the last time we did a full 2 hours with every single call being spectacular, being so helpful, so insightful, so profoundly moving as well. So I couldn't, what the hell would I do without you? And also, what would I do without my wonderful colleagues? Jermaine mentioned YouTube being the way that had helped him to discover the show. So I should say, give a quick mention to Matt Sullivan, who runs the YouTube side of this program and is responsible for getting the film, the video feed of it up on YouTube every day, to the point where last week it was the most popular current affairs program, podcast, whatever you call them, on the whole of YouTube in the UK. So Matt, you're not only are your jumpers glorious, but your hard work is richly appreciated as well. But changing pace now, not just changing pace, changing gear and topic completely, because something struck me about the A-level results that I didn't believe. What was the most popular A-level? What do you think more people took than any other subject? Do you know? I wouldn't even have put it in the top 5. Let's do it. Let's play the game. If you don't know the answer to this question, honest answer. What is the A-level you believe more people took? Because there's 2 ways into this. You just presume that the humanities are more popular. So I would probably have said English literature, history. History. Then you've got the ologies. You've got that, people of a certain age who think everyone's doing sociology these days, or media studies. What would you consider to be, what would you predict to be the most popular A-level sat this year by the most students? James says history. Mike's got it right, but I'm not getting it. Chiati says politics. Raj says Spanish. This is exactly what I would expect to come in. Surely it's English literature. You're only allowed to play if you... It's not babby washing, Andrew, although you win today's prize for being a proper listener, a proper fan of the programme. Geography or politics, law or criminology, another one for politics, A few of you getting it right, but I'm not giving it away yet. Psychology. And now I've got no way of knowing who's looked it up and who is genuinely playing the game. Maths. More people did a maths A-level this year than any other subject. In fact, it smashed through the 100,000 mark for the very first time ever. It's the first time any subject has ever seen more students sitting it than 100,000. And I've got so much to say about this. Yeah, all right, I've got so much to say about most things, but I've got such an odd relationship with maths. I wish I was good at it. Nick played a clip of Rishi Sunak earlier today that I don't think I'd heard before. And I thought 2 things. I thought, God, he was such a wombat, wasn't he? Should we play it? We should play it because he actually... even a stopped clock is right twice a day. And I think this might have been Rishi Sunak's stop clock moment. And I found it oddly moving, actually. Those of us, let's just listen to it first. And then, is it good to go? Have a listen to this.
When my 2 young daughters first heard me talk about them doing more maths, they weren't too excited. And that's just it. We make jokes about not being able to do maths. It's socially acceptable. We say things like, oh, maths, I can't do that, it's not for me, and everyone laughs. But we'd never make a joke like that about not being able to read. So we've got to change this anti-maths mindset. We've got to start prizing numeracy for what it is, a key skill every bit as essential as reading. Every opportunity that I've had in life began with the education that I was so fortunate to receive. And maths was a critical part of that. Now, I knew it was important then. And when I look at how the world is changing, it's only going to be more important for my children and yours. So I won't sit back and allow this cultural sense that it's okay to be bad at maths to put our children at a disadvantage. We've got to change this. We've got to value maths and what it can do for our children's futures. Giving our children a world-class education is the single most important thing we can do.
11 minutes after 12 is the time. I don't know what that does now, what we think of that now that we know maths is the most popular A-level subject for students. But he's right, isn't he? He's right about the anti-maths mindset, as he describes it. He's right about the reading. I can't read. Right? There's a subtext to it. I want to talk about the anti-maths mindset. There's a subtext to the anti-maths mindset, which is those of us who aren't very good at maths are trying to make it not matter much. It's robotic. You're such a nerd. It's self-protection. Jermaine would be good on this, because it's a therapy thing, isn't it? It's survival personality territory. Why are you being so disparaging about maths? Well, I can't actually do it very well. Therefore, I want to portray it as something that is a bit sad if you can do it very well. But I had no idea. Actually, psychology is the second highest, which is down a bit, and sociology has dropped from 6th to 7th. So my pontifications a moment ago were quite good. I want you to tell me why maths is brilliant. And I'm in danger of sounding like Paul Whitehouse, aren't I? That Fast Show character. Oh, maths is fantastic. Because I am an idiot. Did I ever tell you what happened on my first day at university? Have I ever told you this story? Do you know this story? So I'd ended up, because I left school under something of a cloud, which meant that, actually literally, which meant that I did my university applications in a degree of isolation. I was getting help from some of my old teachers, but by letter. That's how old I am. And I signed up to go, and happily I got in to the London School of Economics. I did quite well in my A-levels, largely as a consequence of panic and shame at having been expelled from school and wanting to at least claw back some of my parents' respect. So I got into the London School of Economics to do a degree in economics and philosophy. And I sat in the lecture theatre on the first day. I must have told you this before. There's about 120 kids in the room. And it's induction. They're doing it. Everyone's on the same course, a BSc Econ. Everyone is doing economics, sometimes as double honours, sometimes with another subject like I was. But it's all about economics at the LSE, right? And the lecturer says, the head of the faculty says, right, could everybody who hasn't got an A-level in economics please put their hand up? So say there's 200 of us in the room, and about 30 of us put our hand up, look around and go, oh, this is interesting. What's going on here? I haven't got an A-level in economics. And then he says, could everybody who hasn't got an A-level in maths please put their hand up? And about probably 15 of us, 10 to 15, a noticeably smaller number, we all put our hands up and we look around. And then he said, in a way that made me slightly wary, then he said, almost joking, he said, has anyone just put their hands up twice? If anyone has just put their hand up twice, please put your hand up. And one person put their hand up. And it was me. So that was in 1991. That was my last chance to be good at maths. And I must have done something in my A-levels, which were all essay-based, or in my interview, to make them think I would be able to do it. The course was called Basic Maths for Economists. And there was also a course in logic. And that, in 1991, that was my last chance to learn the music of the spheres. And I absolutely fluffed it. I mean, look, I was lazy, I was distracted, I was in London for the first time, but I also was a mess at maths. And I failed it. And I, to this day, feel that it's like living in when I first did therapy, someone asked me to describe why I found it so amazing. And I said, it's like discovering that the house you've lived in all your life has a garden. You just find a happiness, a resolve. Jermaine, I think, was a great example of this in his call in the last hour. So I've always felt like that about maths. It's as if the house I live in has got a locked room. This is my house. This is the only house I've ever lived. This is my life. And there's a locked room that I can't get in. And if I could get in it, my house would be even better than it is already. My life would be even better than it is already. And I can say that now. But for a long time, I would have done exactly what Rishi Sunak just described. For a long time, I would have sought to poo-poo maths as a way of camouflaging or diluting my own embarrassment at being so bad at it. And Eleanor, the producer, just asked how hard I've actually tried to be good at maths. And the answer is, in 1991, for about 3 months, I tried really hard. I went to every lecture. I went to every tutorial. I couldn't say that about any of the other courses I was signed up for. And I really tried. And do you know, there were moments where it felt like it was about to happen. There were moments where I got the hang of something. But then a week later, it turned out I couldn't do it. Matt makes a point that he heard me talking about square kilometres the other week and couldn't quite believe how bad it was. And that is a very good point that you make, Matt. A very good point that you make. So what on earth am I asking you now? I've no idea. Can everybody crack it if they put the yards in, do you think? 0345 6060 973. I've got 3 or 4 questions for you, okay? Number 1, can everyone crack maths? We did a phone-in about dyscalculia a few years ago, and that was an absolute eye-opener. I don't think I've got dyscalculia. Oh, no, I got an O-level grade B in maths, so it can't be. I'm not like it. So I never got it, though. I never got it. So that's question number 1. Question number 2 is, I mean, why are so many people taking maths? Why are so many people taking maths? 0345 6060 973. And question number 3, which may be the most interesting, where do you think the anti-maths mindset comes from? Where do you think? Because you know he's right. Nobody would speak about not being able to read, brackets, very well closed brackets, with the same casualness that they speak about not being very good at maths. So, question number 1, can anyone crack it? Question number 2. What was question number 2, Keith? I get distracted when I'm talking about numbers. I remember what question number 3 was. Question number 3 was, where does the anti-maths mindset come from? Oh, yeah, why are so many people doing maths? So can anyone crack it? Why is it the most popular A-level in the country? And where did the anti-maths mindset come from? I'm going to add a 4th as well, because it's Friday, and I can. Who wants to go full poetic? Who wants to actually go full poetry on the beauty of maths? Who wants to have a go at describing why being good at maths is just brilliant? Because I really envy you. 0345 6060 973 is the number you need. Charlie, you're proving my point whether you intended to or not. In my day, says Charlie, you didn't get the girls if you did maths. Well, more fool you, girls. Look what you could have won. You could have had a speedboat. 20 minutes after 12. There are your questions. Can anyone crack it if they put in the yards? Why are more people doing a maths A-level than any other A-level? Where does the anti-maths mindset come from? And do you fancy having a go at describing the beauty of maths? Probably quite a good time to remind you that Carol Vorderman will be with you on LBC this weekend. 22 minutes after 12. You may have been worried that the change of government would signal a change of content on this program, you may have been worried that one of the favourite features that we've managed to A, come up with, and B, not forget all about a week later, which has sadly been a hallmark of our favourite features on this program for as long as anyone can remember. You may have been worried that one of our favourite features was withering on the vine, had died perhaps, had disappeared, that we wouldn't get the material that we need to keep it afloat in a post-Tory landscape. Well, it turns out we were worrying unnecessarily.
Unhinged headline.
Plural. Let's do that again in a slightly better way.
Unhinged headline.
And it is inevitably to the Daily Telegraph that we turn for not one, not two, but three unhinged headlines today, and predictable characters as well. We'll start with David Frost, who has written an article under the headline, "We can no longer say that Britain is a free country." What a wombat. Do you know, there's a poor woman in Russia who's been jailed. She's Russian-American, dual citizenship. She turned up to visit her family in Russia. At customs, they found evidence on her phone that she'd made a donation of about $50 to a Ukrainian charity, to a charity supporting Ukrainians. And she's just been locked up for 12 years. In Russia, there's a story from Israel about a restaurateur, an Arab-Israeli restaurateur who posted a joke but pointing out that when Ukraine attacks Russia, it's called war, and when a Palestinian civilian throws a rocket at an Israeli tank, it's called terrorism. That's all he did, and he got his collar felt. And what was interesting about the interview with him was the way in which he said, and I've noticed how it's worked. He wasn't prosecuted in the end, but he was carted away. And he said, I've noticed how it's worked because now I think twice about posting things. And that is the reality, that all of the people claiming their freedom of speech is being compromised because they're not allowed to do incitement to violence on social media. So Elon Musk can put, in 2030 you'll get arrested in the UK for posting a meme. You already get arrested in liberal democracies, supposed liberal democracies, for literally posting a meme. But it's never going to happen here. People like David Frost need to pretend that it is. So that is unhinged headline number one. Unhinged headline number two. Alistair Heath, the king of the unhinged headline. Labour's real agenda for Britain is far more terrible than anyone imagined. So writes Liz Truss's biggest fan on Fleet Street. And it is to Liz Truss that the third headline directs us. This possibly the most unhinged of them all, although don't forget that Liz Truss was the apotheosis of secretly funded lobby groups masquerading as think tanks, getting their hands on the levers of power. So if those secretly funded lobby groups masquerading as think tanks want to carry on their attempts to, as it were, capture the country, they have to somehow get Liz Truss off the hook for being such a walking disaster. So this from a journalist called Isabel Oakeshott. It's time to give Liz Truss a break. Which is the most unhinged of those, do you think? Labour's real agenda for Britain is far more terrible than anyone imagined. We can no longer say that Britain is a free country. And it's time to give Liz Truss a break. I'll let you decide.
Unhinged headlines.
Do you think we should get a plural one done professionally, or are we okay? Can people tell that's just me going zzz at the end, or does it sound? It sounds all right, apparently. Thank you, mate. Yeah. James is in Hackney. Maths, James. What would you like to say?
Good afternoon, James. Always
Hello.
a pleasure.
Likewise.
So, what I want to say is maths, for the sake of maths, itself is probably self-serving and a bit inward-looking.
No.
Interesting for a select few.
Oh, okay. Oh, I want to be in that select few. I want to feel the joy of maths for the sake of maths, though.
No, you don't. You want to feel the joy of maths to do something useful with it, and that's being an engineer.
Okay.
So, I am an electrical engineer. It's all I've ever done. I wanted to do it since I was 5 years old.
Good Lord.
Whereas normal kids have toys at home, I used to take sockets off the wall, and I used to get bits of old test equipment out of the garage and start trying to electrocute my sister's dolls.
I say.
And so always obvious what I was going to be.
Yeah.
And since I've left college, and I did about 50% of my engineering degree was probably maths, maybe more, because I went to Imperial College, and they're quite hardcore.
Yeah.
So we studied a hell of a lot of maths, probably more than the maths students did.
Right.
and I am an electrical power engineer.
What does that mean?
Utilities.
What does that mean?
What that means is if there's a big blackout in London and your lights go out, I will be at the forefront of putting them back on. And obviously, I'll give Mr. O'Brien's residence and your studio top priority.
What do you do the rest of the time when there isn't a blackout? That sounds like quite an easy job.
Test and maintain equipment to make sure there won't be a blackout. We've got one of the most reliable power systems in the world. And we're also constantly extending and expanding the power system.
You
now, to do
love your work, don't you? You love your work.
I absolutely adore it. Absolutely adore it, mate. You follow me on X at Engineer London.
There he goes.
And you'll see some of my videos of live trip testing at 400,000 volts. We wouldn't have any of that, my friend, without maths.
But you're not selling me maths.
Mathematics underpins.
You're selling me electrical engineering. I want the joy of maths, not the joy of electrical engineering.
The point is, my friend, is you take the maths as a springboard to launch you into a decent career as an electrical power engineer, or other options are available.
Many other careers as well. Why do you think
STEM is where it's at? STEM is the future. STEM is the key to economic growth.
I think you're probably right. Well, I did 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, because there are lots of subjects where the point is, that was a bit of maths for you there, James. That was that's where subjects that are an end in themselves, and the simple study of them it improves you as a person, enriches you as a human being, makes you a better contributor to society. But I don't want to exclude one to the.
We don't need loads of them, and we need 500,000 new jobs in the energy
that's why that's why I'm about to ask you why do you think maths is the most popular A level in the country? Is it because the education system is recognising what you're describing?
I think so. I mean, the STEM campaign to get young people interested in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics has been growing in momentum for a number of years.
And that's the trick, isn't it? To get them interested. That's the whole point. And I've been struck, because we got our A-level results yesterday, and I don't think it happened in my day, but quite a lot of my daughter's peer group have done a real mix of A-levels. So they've got a STEM subject in there alongside a humanity, whereas in our day, it was you had to do the whole pack. You had to do the whole... So it's working in all sorts of ways. Before you go, because I'm late for we're about to hit the news, I didn't even know what an electrical engineer was when I was 5. In fact, I didn't know what an electrical engineer was when I was 52. I was today years old when I found out what an electrical engineer was. But how did you develop that ambition as a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old?
Well, my dear old grandfather, rest his soul, he would have been 102 now if he was alive.
Gosh.
He was a painter for the East Midlands Electricity Board.
Right.
So his job was to paint electricity substations, transformers and switchgear. One year they'd be green, the next year they'd be grey. And he used to take me on walks around our village as a toddler, and he used to point out all the substations that he'd painted and tell me an interesting story about them. And he used to say, certain times you can't climb on this equipment unless you've got a permit. And I said, who issues you a permit, Grandad?
Yeah.
He said, the engineer.
Ah.
The engineer's been to college. He knows what he's doing. He keeps us safe. And I thought, that's it.
I'm going to keep my granddad safe. When I grow up, I'm going to keep my granddad safe.
Be an engineer.
Oh, what a lovely story. Thank you, James. 12:31 is the time. Amelia Cox has your headlines. 12:34 is the time. Maths. That was nice from James, but and I get it, an application. But maths, like in the same way that I like to read poems, maths as an end in itself. Who can give me that feeling of joy? Like learning a language or a musical instrument. What is it? What is it all about? Why are so many people studying it? And where does the anti-maths mindset that in a rare outbreak of accuracy, Rishi Sunak so winningly described? Let's go to Monmouthshire. Thomas is in Monmouthshire. Thomas, what would you like to say?
Hi. I'm currently studying maths and further maths at A level.
Gosh.
And so I've got some opinions.
Yeah, go on. But can I start with a stupid question? Do you mind? And then you can fill your booze. What's the difference between maths and further maths?
So maths is kind of building off of GCSE maths. So it's an introduction to techniques such as differentiation, integration, and vectors, which a lot of people at GCSE will have not covered. Right. So it bridges the gap between introductory university maths for engineering and physics.
Got it.
And GCSE maths.
Okay, and further maths?
Further maths is slightly different. Further maths is a short introduction to university level maths, where you're kind of doing things like matrices. So you start doing linear algebra, you'll start doing different techniques in mechanics, and you'll start to explore some different techniques in statistics as well.
Okay, so we've cleared that up. Now back to your original reason for calling in.
So I wanted to talk about the anti-maths mindset and where that potentially comes from. And personally, in my experience, I feel like the anti-maths mindset comes from a lot of people's fear of being wrong. And the way people talk about maths is kind of like, the way maths is, the nature of maths is that it's a very binary subject. You're either right or you're wrong most of the time, especially at a high school level where most people will stop doing maths once they leave secondary school.
Yes.
So the reason people talk about maths kind of like, oh, I can't do maths, I can't do this, is because they might put a lot of effort into coming up with an answer that they will be absolutely 100% sure and certain is right from logical steps that they have taken just for someone to say, you're wrong. And you're kind of like sat there and you're kind of like, how can I be wrong? I've followed this process. I've followed the process the way I know how to do it.
Yes.
Am I going to have to change my entire way of thinking to get the right answer? And most of the time that is the case.
Right.
That especially I've found a lot of the time it's just, I'll think I have something. I think I've got it. I'll go and do all the working out. And then at the end, I'll be told it's wrong. And I have to go back through that question and try and find out where I went wrong and branch off of that. And that's something that a lot of people find quite hard to do because essentially you're being challenged. It's kind of like if you're going into a debate or an argument with someone and you're absolutely dead set on this opinion that you've got,
yes,
and someone comes up to you and says, that's not right. That's not what I think. Doing maths is kind of like arguing with a stupid person. You can push your narrative.
Well, then, I should be better at it then.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like that. That is what it is. You're pushing what you think, and you're pushing your way of thinking just for someone to tell you, no, that's not right because the book says it's not right. And that's because that's what I read.
When did you, have you always loved it?
No, definitely not.
Why? What happened?
I think throughout primary school, I was all right at it, but I didn't really love it because I think the way it's taught is quite bad.
Okay.
People are taught maths in school as if they want to be pure mathematicians.
Yeah.
The way I got into maths is kind of throughout year 10, I was kind of like thinking about what I wanted to do. And one of the things that I wanted to do was get into politics. And I saw a lecture on YouTube about how game theory, which is a mathematical kind of principle based on probability, how game theory relates to nuclear warfare. And that really intrigued me. And so I kind of went down this rabbit hole of, how statistics are used in politics and how things like operational research, which is the use of maths to make decisions in business and sometimes in policy, and how that's used to, make decisions. And I just became really interested in it through that. And then you start from that, you gain an interest in maths.
That's the bit I never got. That's the bit I never got, Thomas. Is that little bit there where everything you said was fascinating, and then you said from that. I never got that. I never got there because I don't know why. I never got there. You make it sound so fantastic, so engaging, so important, so relevant. It's not cool though, is it?
No, it's really not.
That's not fair.
Cool thing at all.
That's not fair. It should be cool. Why do you think it's not cool? Because of that reason you've just explained. Because it's cool to be the kind of, the peacock strutting around the place with his clever words and strong opinions.
I think people don't think it's cool because people don't like being told they're wrong, and being told you're wrong is kind of.
Oh, that's such a clever observation.
It's people. People like to think about like your average kind of arrogant person. They're kind of. Everything they say is right. They're never challenged on anything.
Sounds awful.
And then, think about maths telling you that you're wrong. It's kind of humbling in a way.
I think you're absolutely rinsing me live on my own radio show here, Thomas.
I apologise profusely.
No, you don't. You don't. That could be it. Except I'm not quite what you described, because I would love to be good at maths. But yeah, maybe looking back, even if you write a brilliant essay, if you write a rubbish essay rather, and you get a rubbish mark, you can still cling to the notion that it's the teacher's fault, can't you? And that your genius has gone unrecognised. But maths is that's it. It's right or wrong. Did you see the statistics on the number of people who thought that if they put in a shift for the next 4 years, they could be in the next Olympics?
Yeah, I did. I saw that. It was something crazy like that.
But that's the arrogance of which you speak, I think. I think people just don't like evidence that they're not amazing. And maths is a constant reminder that you're wrong about.
Yeah, that's exactly what I think. I think that's it in a nutshell right there.
Yeah, it really is. There it is. Oh, you're a star. So what you do, just finished your lower six then?
Yeah, just finished lower six, going into upper six now then.
And what will you do at university, do you think?
I'm planning to do mechanical engineering and then go into the biomedical industry.
And then when you've made your fortune, maybe have a look at politics, or is that ambition, has that ship sailed?
I do plan to work with the NHS and maybe
see where it takes you.
Yeah, see where that goes.
Well, good luck. I've got a hunch you're going to be okay, mate. I really do. But thank you very much. Well, no, thank you very much. That's an absolute eye opener there, and he's right, isn't he? Where does the anti-math mindset come from? A hatred of being demonstrably wrong. It's got to be part of it. That won't be all of it, but it's got to be part of it. Matthias is in Richmond. Matthias, what do you think?
Hi, James. Matthias here. My first time calling in.
Welcome.
I'm a bit nervous. I've been on the radio once before, and I was 14. It didn't go very well.
What happened?
I was on Sport Talk, and I was talking about Manchester United in the semi-final, quarter-final against Chelsea. Yeah. And I think I sounded a bit silly, so I'll do better today.
Go on.
But yes, I want to get that question through as well, why there is this disillusion for maths. And I think it comes from, especially from a young age, the perceived needlessness of being good at maths unassisted, that is without a calculator. I think using a calculator is a very early iteration of what we're going to see with sort of AI assistance. There's a lot of sort of operational processes that we do now professionally that are taken care of by computer systems and softwares. I think maths for the longest time, I'm 25 and I can remember taking my calculator into my GCSEs and never doing maths as complicated as that again. I think maths is so automated that I would cautiously suggest that we're sort of deferring to technology to take care of it, and that kind of takes the fun out of it in a little way, especially the creativity.
Yeah, so there's two things going on there. So the technology has taken away the necessity of being good at it.
Mm-hmm.
But the desire to be good at it that's a different element of anti-maths mindset. It's where Thomas was talking about almost wanting to poo-poo it as a discipline. That's not because we don't need it. That's because we're not good at it, or that's because it keeps giving us reminders of how wrong we are.
Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to get at is I think that the functional appeal of maths, of getting to a certain level where you have to be sort of proficient enough, it sort of takes people out of wanting to be good at it. Whereas with English and reading, and we talked about, there's no device that can read for you. So despite how much you might dislike English and poo-poo it and not want to do it, you have to get to a certain level of being able to read, because there's no deference going on there.
And that's maybe part of the problem, is that we don't understand that maths can do all of those things. Maths can literally be I don't know why I keep saying the music of the spheres. I've probably misremembered that or got it from somewhere, and it's an entirely irrelevant contribution to the conversation. But you'd really want to be good at it, and yet we didn't when we were young. You're much younger than me. Why does your generation do it in such numbers then? Why is it now the most popular A-level in the country?
I guess there's a couple. I mean, I did my A-levels 8 years ago or so. So, and I went to boarding school, and I remember maths was not cool then either.
No one did it.
No, I think maths lacks a certain sexiness. We can still romanticize mathematicians. I think Einstein, he's pretty cool, but he's not necessarily so sexy. Whereas you think about Oscar Wilde and the stories of Jane Austen, those are pretty sexy, So
I think you're onto something there. I think you're right. There's content and heft. I mean, how to make maths sexy? There's a challenge. It shortened the Second World War, of course, from work of Enigma, Alan Turing at Bletchley Park and all that kind of thing. That's maths. But Matthias, thank you. Do you know, most Alan Partridge thought I've had all week. Do you want to know what it was? I'm looking at Matthias's name on the switchboard and I'm thinking, oh, your name looks a bit like maths. I'm so glad I didn't say that out loud. It's 12:48. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC, where the question, the magic, the beauty of maths, and the reason why an anti-maths mindset has blighted generations, actually, even before pocket calculators were commonplace. Do you know, I can remember phone-ins about whether or not kids should be able to take calculators into exams. It sounds like something from the Middle Ages, doesn't it, to a younger listener now? Francis is in Croydon. Francis, what made you pick up the phone?
Hi there, yeah, I'm a maths teacher in Croydon.
Woohoo!
I know we're running short on it. I think it's a bit of a problem, that.
Yes.
But I've been teaching for 25 years, and there's various factors, I think, why kids really get involved now and really enjoy it a lot more.
Is it the best it's ever been, then, from a maths teacher's point of view, in terms of engagement?
Yeah, I think it is.
How
because,
interesting.
I mean, we still have issues on that, but they're all subjects do. But I think the change in the curriculum in 2018...
Strong in each other's arms, where we belong. Through the storm and through the fire, our bond will never tire. As the years go passing by, our friendship shines and cannot die. For in our hearts we always know, brotherhood will forever grow.
Made actually maths a much smaller gap between the GCSE and the A-level, which is why there's more pupils now capable of going from GCSE to A-level. Whereas previously, before 2018, 2017, the GCSEs were just a massive gap. So when they suddenly go on to A-level, we'll find that they're doing it a lot more in around Christmas time. That's just one of the many reasons I think that could be it.
Good grief.
There's also... Sorry, go ahead.
No, I just said good grief, I finished. Good grief, full stop.
There's a few more things. Shortage maths teachers was a big problem, but we've had a massive influx of teachers coming from abroad that have also filled in gaps in teaching. So we had a big influx of teachers from the Caribbean coming over the last 10 years.
Did we really?
And yeah, that's really helped. I can definitely speak for the London area.
Yeah.
So I'm afraid I can't speak for the rest of the country in that sense, but definitely for the London area. And teachers now are very, very much, with the curriculum change, they show a lot more of a positive attitude, I think more active attitude, I think, in general, than may have happened before, as in, it's not simply just putting questions on the board, which I don't believe teachers did ages ago, and answering things like that. I think now we're encouraged as teachers to get them a lot more, pupils a lot more involved in real-life situations and relating maths to various things in life. So it's very much building interest.
This is so interesting. This phone in it, and you're brilliant. So much to cover, but you've led me to a very uncomfortable place, Francis.
Go ahead.
I don't know if you can guess what's coming.
But do we anything to do with the big situation going on at the moment?
No, none of that. Do we need to give
calculators?
No.
No.
Do we need to give credit to Michael Gove?
He wasn't the person who changed the curriculum. No, he wasn't the person who did it. I'm not going to asking your teacher that. You're right, controversial.
Yes, well, exactly.
If there's any name that sticks out, yeah, you are exactly right with that. No, the whole curriculum changed. To be honest, I'm not going to say who changed it when it was changed. Sorry, whose idea it was to to change it.
Why
but
not?
I like to thank them because I don't know.
Oh, I
Purely
see.
because I don't
that's
know.
right. I thought you were being all coy and mysterious.
No.
Well, there's loads
Simply
there.
honest, I don't know the person who actually...
So are you enjoying your work more than ever before then, as a consequence of all of the factors you've just described?
Yeah, I think maths is so much better to teach now, and encouraging pupils more and more, as we always do, to take up A-level and push them further on. And I think also parents are a lot more positive about it, because I remember in my 25 years of teaching, I can turn them quite about 15 years, and I'd often see parents saying, oh, I was bad at maths myself, I didn't really like it, and just accept it at that for their children.
That's
when they came
just
to
not something
parenting.
we do, and that's such a defeatist. That's exactly what Sunak was talking about, isn't it? That anti-maths mindset where you're almost comical about it, pejorative, and oh dear, and you'd never be like that about reading. This is brilliant. This is probably the closest thing to a good news story that we've had for quite a long time on the programme, isn't it? And it's maths.
No. Well, I've got to say, I'm really happy you played that Rishi Sunak clip, because I didn't know he'd said that at all.
Well, you do now.
Actually, something impressive about him,
I
which
know.
I'm a bit shocked about.
Exactly that. It's nice, isn't it, to have warm thoughts about people who were responsible for giving you so many cold thoughts. But no, well done, Rishi Sunak, wherever you are. Nice work, Francis. I bet you're a brilliant teacher. You're a great communicator. 12:53 is the time. What about the magic of it? Explain to a maths bozo the feelings that you get when you're on a roll, on a maths roll. Harry's in Grays. Harry, what would you like to say?
Hi, James.
Hi, Harry.
Lovely to speak with you again. So you said to describe math in a poetic way.
Yes.
So here it is.
Come on.
Math is the language of the universe, a symphony of numbers that sings the harmony of the cosmos. It is the dance of logic, where every equation is a step in an intricate ballet, choreographed by the unseen forces that binds the world together. In its symbols and signs, math waves the story of infinity, where lines stretch endlessly and circle embrace the mysteries of pi.
Wow.
And I have a confession, James.
Go on.
This is written by ChatGPT.
I nearly said AI, but I thought I was going to sound stupid when I said that.
But do you know what, James?
What?
ChatGPT cannot exist without math.
Of course not.
So
It's
math
coding.
is describing itself just now.
Wow. What did you do? What did you tell it to do? Did you do that yourself, or is that something you...
Yeah, no, just type in ChatGPT, say describe math in a poetic way, like your question did.
That's mad. Get maths
crazy.
to describe maths and in a poetic way.
Yes.
Wow. Are you very good at it?
I'm Chinese, so I grew up in the system. We had this conversation before.
Did
James.
we? Oh, don't say that. It makes me sound like my show's derivative and predictable.
Oh, no, not at all. It's the opposite of that. But growing up in China, math is a essential subject that you have to take until you're age of 18.
Right.
And all the math-based subjects, such as chemistry and physics, so those are all essential. You have no choice but to choose them. You have no choice. So that is why the problem or the symptoms of seeing math as unsexy does not exist in countries like China, because it is essential that you have to do it. If I bring home with a bad report card of not doing well in math, I'll get a Hoyukent by my dad.
Well, that is of geopolitical significance, isn't it, as well, in terms of future...
when I was young, we had a saying: when you learned math, physics, and chemistry, you can travel the world without trouble. So I'm paraphrasing, but that's the sentiment. So in my generation and the generation since growing up in China, there's no math is worshipped.
And that speaks. I've got to crack on because I've got to play a plug for full disclosure. But what beautiful contribution! What a great show! What a great week! Go us. Paul Sinha, the comedian, the Cinnamon on The Chase, former GP. I don't know whether you knew that he used to be a doctor, recently diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, about which he talks very movingly. And a lovely man who I've actually known, sort of, for a long time. But he's the guest on Full Disclosure this week because he's got a new autobiography out, which has an absolutely brilliant title that I'm going to share with you at the end of this little clip of Paul talking to me about that somewhat unlikely shift from GP to comedian, although it's a shift that other people have made, including Harry Hill, who was a few years ahead of him at medical school.
I failed my finals. This is not a surprise. It's not even a big story, really. I'd failed so many of my exams. It was devastating at the time, but I knew that if I just put my head down and worked hard enough for the resits, I'd probably pass. And that 6 months, I went to watch a lot of comedy with my sister, who's a big comedy fan. And we went to a place called the Cosmic Comedy Club in Hammersmith, now a block of flats, sadly. It was a Tuesday night open mic night, and I saw some people that went on to be very famous there, like Johnny Vegas and Lee Mack. I first saw at the open spot night at the Cosmic, and I also saw a lot of rubbish as well. And eventually, this nagging thought comes into your head, which is, I should give this a go. Now, I must stress now, because it's a very different world now where people go in with ambition and a plan, that London's open spot scene was so busy and so packed with gigs, it was perfectly okay to just give it a go. The idea that you had to rush it, rush your journey or have big ambitions to be a professional stand-up comedian was not the open spot scene that I recognised from 1995. I thought, for a start, I was 25 and I was young. At 25, I felt young. But I thought I'd be unusual in doing it for and giggles rather than anything more profound than that. I wasn't. There was a lot of us around. There was a lot of us for whom this was clearly akin to bungee jumping or a lot of people that I look back with a lot of fondness and affection who quite clearly knew they were never going to be stand-up comedians professionally. And I was one of them.
All of which means you're not feeling under enormous pressure when you finally decide.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
I look back on that time, and I think I said this in the book, that if I'd died 3 times in a row, I'd have probably given up. But it always kind of went death, good, death, good, death, good, like that. And sometimes 2 or 3 good ones in a row, who knows? It's a long time ago now. I was always doing just enough to come back next time. Keep me in. Because I wasn't in London for most of this. I was a junior doctor in King's Lynn. And I've got to say that when I was a junior doctor in King's Lynn, everybody found it fascinating. It was a real, have you met Paul? He does stand-up. Okay. They didn't need to know that I wasn't getting paid for any of it.
No, but it became part of your identity then.
Very much, and it helped me on my CV. And
you liked it. You liked that part of your identity.
Yeah, exactly.
But there's no sense yet of it being the path out of the stethoscope.
No, nor did I necessarily think that there would ever be a path out of the stethoscope.
Paul Sinha, the guest on this week's Full Disclosure, and I think the architect of the finest title for an autobiography ever. If Spike Milligan's gravestone, I told you I was ill, is the finest ever epitaph, then I think Paul's autobiography title, given, you have to bear in mind his surname is Sinha, so spelled Sinha, but pronounced Sinha, and his autobiography is called I've messed it up after that big build-up. Which Matthew Wright's distracting me. The autobiography is called One Sinha Lifetime. Genius. And this week's guest on Full Disclosure. That's it from me for another week. We'll do it all again on Monday morning from 10. If you missed any of this week's shows, including today's, you can listen back on Catch Up on Global Player. All Global's live radio stations are also there. So download it for free from your app store or head to globalplayer.com. Coming up at 4 on LBC, Tom Swarbrick. But now, standing in for Sheila, it's Matthew Wright. 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 For Sheila, it's